Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, whoever one of you identify as. Welcome back to the Shed Dread. Welcome to another stream of Why We Love Doctor Who. And we are all talking things Seventh Doctor with the old Sylvester McCoy. And as always, I'm joined by my very good friend, John. Hello, John. How are you feeling today?
Hello, Gobby. Hello, chat. And so welcome to Darko and Classic 80s Fanboy.
Yes,
I see you boys just can't wait. You're chatting away already.
yes.
I'm in a very good mood this week, actually, Gobby, because
Awesome.
I've had a really good breakthrough this week. I am now getting help at home with care visits.
Brilliant.
And,
Brilliant.
it's a big relief for me because it has been quite a struggle the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So having that extra support is a very good thing. Put a big smile on my face. Generally, I'm doing pretty well. I feel more healthy than I did a few weeks ago. So I'm certainly pushing back, and I've got my Cobalt dye scan booked for the end of the month, which will find out even more about how to help me fight this cancer.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
there's a long way to go. I won't really know how it's going, maybe for another 3 months, because then all the big scans get redone to give a baseline to back to December. You see,
Yeah.
so then I might be able to say what level of progress I'm making, but I'm certainly coping well at the moment. So let's
Great.
make hay while the sun shines, huh?
Absolutely,
Um,
mate. Absolutely.
and now the sun is going to shine with our love and adoration of the Sylvester McCoy era
Oh, yes,
of
indeed.
Doctor Who.
Yes.
Um, oh, I am really looking forward to this episode because I think of all my preparations for doing these, it's actually the McCoy era I've been looking into the deepest
Mm.
because maybe I've felt in terms of my own knowledge as a fan, it's the McCoy era I still have the most to learn about of the classic eras.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been deep diving it. I was doing my deep dive McCoy research before we even got to do the Colin episode last week, so I'm well stocked up. And where were we last time? We had just saved Gallifrey from Gallifrey
Yes.
somehow
Somehow, by
by
miracle.
the use of a megabyte modem, which was certainly an interesting naming choice by Pip and Jane Baker, and Colin and Bonnie had entered the TARDIS to the refrain of carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice. And as
Indeed.
far as we knew,
Yep.
more Colin was ahead.
Absolutely.
But no, that was not to be.
Oh, didn't quite work out that way, did it?
So I think the production problems of Trial certainly sabotage Trial's chance to be a fantastic success. I
Yeah.
think we could definitely say Trial was a bold gamble,
Yeah.
but we can't say that it paid off.
No.
And problems sticking the landing means that it just didn't have the impact that it needed to have to
Exactly.
prove that Doctor Who was alive and kicking. So the
Yes.
BBC were just unhappy, basically. John Nathan Turner was at least breathing a sigh of relief because, as far as he was concerned, he was at last done with it and he
Yeah.
was off to do something else, something light entertainment that he could actually enjoy that he wanted to make.
Yeah.
He was so convinced that he wouldn't have to do anything else for Doctor Who, but he completely put his feet up.
Yep.
He
Completely.
completely put his feet up. But then the BBC got in touch with him and they said, right, Colin's got to go and you've got to sack him. So they made him sack Colin.
Yeah.
And then they turned around and said, John, do you want a job with us? Because there's
Indeed.
only one, and that is to continue making Doctor Who. And
Yep.
if you say no, you'll have no job and there'll be no show.
Not much of a
Now,
choice for you, was it?
I think we should all have respect for the situation that John Nathan Turner was put in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he should have been producing the show. A lot of fans think he should have gone by this point or before.
Yeah.
But when it came to it, it's the BBC sabotaging Doctor Who because they did want rid of it, making sure no one else was gonna take over. If there was
Absolutely.
even an internal house BBC producer who wanted to take on the career suicide of taking on a show with an X marked on its forehead,
Absolutely.
So that is the backdrop to which the McCoy era was born. And all of a sudden, JNT was up against no bloody time at all, and he had no scripts
No.
and no doctor.
Only a small problem then.
Yeah,
Only a tiny problem. No doctor. Only half a script.
but he did have a companion. At least
Well, they say one thing.
Bonnie Langford was still up for it, so there was at least a ray of sunshine. And what do you get in a situation like that, Gobby?
Oh, desperation.
Well, what you get is you get a hurried phone call to Pip and Jane Baker going, here's some more money, save my butt. Yeah, and you get Time and Varani. Now, there's one thing we could say immediately about Time and Varani. It's much, much better than the Twin Dilemma.
Oh, well, yes. Well, yes. Yeah, you can't argue that, can you? It is much better.
So,
it's an improvement. It's an improvement.
It's a big improvement on Twin Dilemma.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, let's give Pip and Jane Baker immediate credit there.
Yes, indeed.
But, again, and bear in mind, they were writing not even knowing who was going to be playing the part of Doctor Who.
Exactly, which is difficult to do.
What the character decisions are going to be or anything. And of course, the decision on who to cast was Sylvester McCoy. And I mean, it was an interesting casting process. There were a lot of people that they wanted who said no. As just a fact.
Yep.
Because, I think Colin Baker had been in the press at this point. There'd been quite a bit of negative publicity about Orbis sacked. Eric Sayward had exploded across the fanzines and to some extent the letters page of Doctor Who magazine. But I think Doctor Who magazine itself tried to stay out of it. But God, that was a fandom fight of legend.
Yes, a legendary fight.
JNT versus Sayward. I mean, modern fans, just if you weren't alive for it, you haven't got a freaking clue.
Everything else pales into the
it's just like a fandom these days, as bad as it is just like a light breeze. It was an even more bitter fight than PlayStation versus Nintendo a few years later. It really was geek war. That waged, throughout this period. Sylvester McCoy was recommended, and JNT went to see him performing in, I think it was some kind of theatre production. And basically, it was a mate of his, Ken, somebody who suggested him, and he went with it. But the BBC higher-ups weren't convinced, and they wanted to know that Sylvester could pull off the dark side. So on the Time and Varani DVD is the test screenings, the interview test screenings for Sylvester. And what JNT did was he very cunningly put up two other actors who were lovely actors, but just not Doctor Who. So only Sylvester shone. Performing. Ken Campbell, thank you, JWC Reviews.
Ken Campbell.
Ken Campbell recommended that JNT check out Sylvester. So Sylvester was cast, and with very little time to try to get hold of it. And I think everybody, including Sylvester, is entirely honest that the first stab of it in Time and Varani, they got it wrong.
Yeah.
In they overdid the clowning tomfoolery, and the silly lyrical stuff like mixing up the proverbs, which is quite clever to get it right and not fluff those lines.
Well,
when you know that a line is supposed to be said a way, and you've got to say it an opposite way, but say it in a way that it seems natural and not forced, but you're saying it. Not easy for an actor.
No, absolutely
You've got to be nimble upstairs to pull that off.
Yeah.
And Sylvester McCoy is certainly a nimble upstairs performer with excellent comic timing.
Oh yeah.
So
Really is.
he's a remarkably talented man. Um,
Yeah.
but that's how we ended up with Sylvester in the part. But as a young Doctor Who fan, the first thing I knew about it was starting a new series and seeing what very clearly was Sylvester McCoy in a wig all along, under a quantal effect, magically turned into Colin Baker. But you know what? Okay, I've a load of a show. I understand we weren't getting Colin to come back to do that, so I'm with it. Let's go.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
we proceeded to get into part one, and there were things about part one that immediately did grab attention in a positive way, like Twin Dilemma didn't. For a start, you've got a genuine new title sequence.
Yes. Yes.
And really quite a technically impressive one for 1987.
Oh god, yeah, it was pushing it.
The only bit that doesn't really hold up is rocks, because they do look very much like grey polygonal lumps these days, rather than any kind of convincing space asteroid. But the whole galaxy and the spinning bit and stuff. I mean, we hadn't had anything like this.
No.
It was actually a big ramp up from what we've seen in Twilight of the Time Lords, because this was computer, not model. So the era started with quite a bold new look. I wasn't entirely sure about the slanty Doctor and the Who across the bottom and sort of split it. But they did it, so they did it. They did it.
But that was
what they did. But at least it was new.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. I mean, how bad would it be if they just had done a temporary bodge on Colin's last titles and plus Sylvester's face in it? How bad would that be? So we put the effort in there. Yeah, I did like it.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm not entirely convinced by the music, but my hearing's not the best. So I tend to just get the very rhythmic kind of part to it. It seems a bit simple. But by the same notice, Peter Capaldi's theme always sounds like it's being sung by cats out their backsides to me. So I'm not a fan of that one either. Yeah, so fair's fair, but I mean it's perfectly likable. But also in the story itself, as we get into it and Mel starts triggering off these traps, and there's this bubble trap bouncing off the cliffs, and there's other pyro effects going off, and really dramatic improvement on anything the show had done before.
Absolutely.
Also, the space shots being CGI with a strange matter asteroid.
Yeah.
And later in the story with the rockets going to target, all of this stuff was big leaps up. What wasn't a leap up so much was Varani this time round.
Yeah.
Much less engaging.
Yes.
But I think by not having the master dynamic to play off against, put her in the primary villain role, which made it a bit hard not to do the moustache twirling, even though she doesn't have a moustache.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
Because if that was a male character, it would be quite evil plan. Moustache twirly. So there wasn't the psychological depth to Rani.
No.
But there was in the kind of coldness to her rationality when we saw her first time round, but still wonderfully played by Kate O'Mara.
Oh god,
and she did great stuff with the whole I'm Mel really confused regenerating Doctor, and pulling off the power shoulder pads. Sadako, it feels patronisingly pantomime. Well, I mean, yes, and we could have come to this, and unfortunately, this is really reinforced in the first episode because the Doctor's dragged out the TARDIS by the tech traps. The suspension of tech traps, by the way, was very well maintained.
Yes, the tech
to
traps,
give the story some bounce with their reveal later. I mean, that was effective. But as he's waking up, he's confused. He mistakes Rani for Mel. She took a drug to make that happen, doesn't she? She drugs him.
Yes.
And to create that confusion, and then he starts getting spoons out and pratfalling and stuff. And this is what have you done, JNT? And it is worse because at this point he's in Colin's costume.
Yes, indeed. Which is baggy on him, to say the least.
So it's almost like you could take it as kind of sending up for previous era. You could take it the wrong way, and I think some fans did.
Yeah. Well, obviously.
Because, I mean, we might as well say this before we get further into it. Season 24 went down like a hot sick.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely.
I'm afraid that there was not much positivity in fandom at the end of the season.
No.
I think, as we'll come to it, Dragonfire was the one thing that was kind of redeeming it for people.
Yeah.
That was giving people, was like one thing to hang on to. But Sylvester was really under so much pressure, and there's an excruciating clip of Sylvester and Bonnie on a points of view kind of respond program, and they're just reading out letters, kicking the poor guy in the balls again and again and again,
over and over. Yeah,
but
good.
I will speak to Sylvester's character here because look, you can see it hurting him emotionally. You can see it hard. You can see how much he's trying, but he's got an indomitability about him.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I will make this work. I will prove myself. I will succeed. And he says that. And there's no question. And in anything we might discuss about anything that might not have been the best about this era, but Sylvester McCoy is a classic Doctor. In the First Order, he's excellent.
Oh, yeah.
He's lived that part, and he's earned our total respect. So whatever was going on, but I'm just being honest with fans today, should know the truth. But back in season 24, this was not going well.
No, it was not going well at all.
And how I felt as a fan was in the not going well category. And I'm not going to pretend I wasn't. But at the same time, I wasn't finding things that I didn't enjoy. I didn't want to stop watching.
Yeah.
As ropey as it gets in season 24, I didn't want to stop watching. Back to Time and Nirani. So, I mean, we've got these different plots going off, and I think the story does improve. I mean, once Sylvester gets into costume, he gets a chance to start to give his Doctor a bit of a stamp.
Yeah,
and once once he comes into his intelligence in the last part, he's starting to show something that you can respect.
Yeah.
They did try with the production values of this. The insect effectively in the Lacurtian dome is by far the least impressive. Because that's literally just green dots on the screen. But that's always been Doctor Who, hasn't it? But it was at least back, and it was at least fresh, and at least we knew we had more Doctor Who, which was a lot better than none. So the new era was off. I mean, have you anything to add about Time and Nirani? Do you watch it again ever? Is it a secret pleasure? Can you enjoy it?
I still find it extremely. I find it like a really bad pantomime, to be fair. And it's a shame because I grew to love Sylvester's actual Doctor and the way he portrayed the Doctor, especially in the later series. I really, really loved it. But this one did feel very pantomimey. And then when I watched it and learned the backstory about like how rushed it was and things like that, then you kind of could get what they're trying to do, but it still doesn't. It just doesn't. It's just a little bit too silly. Just a little bit too silly for me.
Before we move on past this, I think we have to bring in what we've got here in chat because there's a lot being said here. Most of it by Sadako. McCoy's Doctor does come off horribly here, dumb, self-pitying, more grumpy than he was charming. Just lots of problems.
Yes.
Even though you can see Sylvester's he is trying, and he wants it to work. You can never take that away from him.
No.
This was just not a way to start. No prep time here.
Nothing.
And those problems are all in the script, and the fact that because we didn't even know who we're writing for.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So it all had to be adapted and ad-libbed and tried to made into something better than it was. Lots of problems all over. Other comments from Sadako. This one about fandom. I think the worst thing is there were fans at the time who insisted fans should pretend to like season 24 regardless because they didn't want to encourage for cancellation. Kind of a mirror of season 11. There were fans who insisted fans should pretend to like season 11 a lot regardless, but the difference was this time because if they didn't, they'd get cancelled.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But it's true, I mean, there was this rift in fandom. Don't say anything, but I can tell you now, don't say anything didn't win.
No, he didn't.
Don't say anything. Basically, just got trampled all over. But it was one of the points of view that was out there. Whereas another few, I've got to scroll up here to see. I've got to move myself, Gobby.
You give me a shout which one you want. And
I'll off topic. We'll cover the off topic. Listening to Michael McDonald, sweet volume at a low, sweet theme at a low volume, and watching this stream makes it one of the greatest experiences I've had today. He can whistle and walk at the same time.
I know.
He can listen to music and listen to us.
I'll tell you what, he's a talented lad.
That is really amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So end of the first episode. Behind the start, a strongly cliffhanger. I was feeling honestly so depressed at the story. I didn't want to continue. No one was saying anything good about this.
No, it wasn't being praised. It was never being praised at all.
And then finally, a lot of days I think the classic show should just ended when Tom left. No. Season 22.
Yes. No, yeah.
I could live with Revelation of the Daleks and the show ending on I'll take you to I wouldn't have wanted to miss the Davison era for certain. So I can't go with that.
I do get his the feeling there.
It's when the show lost its Saturday evening height. I mean, I'll get that.
When Tom went, it felt like it was from then on in struggling. Although I agree, Davidson was. Davidson grew on me, shall we say?
Classic 80s fanboy fans were getting fed up with yet another quarry located story. Yeah. I believe. God, it can't be this story because I know Pip and Jane didn't do that because they wouldn't have done it because they're sensible. But there was another guy who wrote his story set in the jungle and then that got in a quarry. I think
amazing.
I may be thinking of a Tom Baker story actually. Anyway, I think it's one of the better quarries. Yeah, quality quarry. I mean, only the best in England.
Oh, yes.
Blow great big chunks out of them like nobody else,
Yes,
okay.
We do quarries well.
And then you probably use some of that stone to construct Paradise Towers.
Paradise Towers, yes.
Now,
looking for a swimming pool.
Paradise Towers is where Andrew Cartmel makes his entrance.
Yes,
as the Doctor Who script editor.
Yeah.
And I think before we go anywhere more, we should just talk about Andrew a little minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Andrew was a very different character to Eric Saitwin. I think Eric very much a very disciplined screenwriter, screen editor from a BBC trained old school.
Yeah.
Whereas Andrew very much more new kid on the block with everything to prove.
Exactly.
But without the television experience.
Mm.
And I think that everything that happens with the McCoy era and everything that goes right and everything that goes wrong all roots back to that same thing. In its the difference between how Andrew thought about the show and how Andrew edited the show. Hi Matthew Pounder.
Yeah.
And Eric. Because Eric kept the writers on an incredibly tight leash. He almost kept them throttled.
Yeah.
And he kept their creativity very much under his direct control. And that they were supposed to be doing what he wanted them to do. Whereas Andrew very much wanted to unleash the creativity of the writers. But in doing that, it meant that there was a general practice of then trying to fix it in the edit.
Yeah.
And what Ian was telling us when we interviewed him about there's much significantly longer versions of many of the McCoy
Yeah,
stories.
many of them.
You know, half an episode or longer of missing
Yeah.
material.
Yeah, they did cut a lot.
And with that material, the stories remarkably are a lot better.
Yes.
Now, I mean, this isn't something that impacted Paradise Towers so much. In fact, I think it's the opposite. They had to find some stuff to fill the 4 parts.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
the
it was.
way around. But it certainly impacted stories later on in season 25 and season 26. So, you know, that will impact our reviews because I'm going to give my score on these stories based on what was transmitted back in the 80s.
Yes, exactly.
Not on what was in the novelization,
Yeah.
and not was what's in any complete, a more complete Blu-ray version that people can have access to today. For a start, I haven't got Blu-rays, so I can't look at those. But I know that, you know, reading the novels, I know that some of the stories made a lot more sense as books. So, you know, obviously those were stories that had big cuts before they got to screen. Yeah. So having provisoed that, because that's going to impact how we talk about the rest of the stories to some extent. Just get that in people's heads. Paradise Towers, first Cartmel script, and a really bold one. It took an idea from the novelist J.G. Ballard about a modern tower block where society breaks down and the residents start to hunt and eat each other.
Yes.
So that was the core inspiration. So yes, Doctor Who flirts with cannibalism once more. That was a smart idea.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that aspect of the story did get, as might be predicted, complaints, especially because it came with some rather grisly bones coming back up the waste disposal system.
Mm-hmm.
But let's come all the way back to the beginning. Mel wants to swim.
Yeah, she wants a swimming pool.
Yeah, and so the doctor says, "Right, I'm going to take you to this fantastic swimming pool at Paradise Towers." And so they set the controls, spin up the time motor, and they materialise in a rather rundown hallway, concrete hallway with graffiti and debris all over the place, and things not quite looking like they should.
Yeah, not quite paradise, shall we say? Not quite paradise.
And what we find out is that there's a war, or there was a war. Nobody even knows if the war is still going on, or if anybody won. But the war took all the men away, all the fighting age men away. So what they're left with is gangs of girls who form up into competing gangs called Kangs.
The Kangs, the red Kangs and the blue Kangs.
And the elderly people who got left behind who are called the Resis. And then the people who it's kind of inferred were too thick to send off to fight in a war, who kind of are supposed to keep the place going, called the caretakers. So you've got 3 principal groups in Paradise Towers: the Kangs, the Residents, and the caretakers. But you've also got something very, very nasty lurking in the basement.
Yes.
So each group, the Kangs, the Resis, and the caretakers, are all being slowly predated by the sinister cleaners. So what's going on, and why are the cleaning robots eating people? And what's the mystery behind Paradise Towers? And can the Doctor and Mel find a working lift up to the pool? And fairly soon they get split off. They start going their separate ways. Mel starts to encounter the Kangs and the caretakers. The Doctor starts to encounter the Resis Mel encounters. You know, including the 2 lovely old ladies who love their knitting, had somewhat sinister intent. Commenting on Mel's fleshy bosoms. I think, you know,
very nice.
Yummy. Yes, one on the plate.
Quite yummy.
Everybody knows how that's supposed to go. And when the Doctor finds out, you know, about the chief caretaker, who really is a bit of a rules-obsessed megalomaniac.
Absolutely.
And the plot unfolds, and there's a fair amount of running around, but there's lots of fun stuff in there. And then it resolves that actually the mind of the bloke who built the towers is being kept in a computer in the basement, and the chief caretaker is lured in and then transfigured into the great architect Cragnon,
Yes, indeed.
where JNT reportedly was spitting attacks at Richard Briers, furious with him because he felt that Richard Briers was taking the piss out of the show, aka Paul Darrow in Time Lash.
Oh, yes, indeed.
With ostentatious, grievous overacting.
Mm.
And in fairness, Richard Briers seems to not give a blow shit.
No,
So
he enjoyed himself.
If you think his Adolf Hitler-esque, zombie-esque, reincarnated Cro-Agnon was naff and over the top or whatever, then it most certainly was. But if you see it as Richard Briers having the absolute time of his life,
he was loving
that
it
too.
Oh, he was absolutely. You could see
he was that
loving
too.
that.
Yeah,
he
was 100% totally. Hello, grandchildren. Look at me devouring the scenery on Doctor Who.
Sadako makes a good point there. It doesn't really make sense why an architect who designs residential blocks would happen to hate people.
Don't question the plot. That's questioning the underlying plot. Don't do that. That's like messing with Jenga. The whole tower could come down.
Dear.
I mean, how do we assess Paradise Towers? Look, I actually find it quite fun. I perfectly enjoyed my rewatch. And it's definitely one of the McCoy stories that I would choose to rewatch. So I actually think on that basis, it must be one of the better productions of season 24.
I liked it. It was fun.
C+.
Yeah.
We didn't score Rani, did we?
We didn't score Rani, did we?
What have we like?
No. We've blown the system already.
This is something else we've completely forgot because Jack can't be with us today.
No. Oh, hold on a second. I've just got to go and answer the door. Hold on a minute.
Okay. You carry on. Well, we'll give Time and Rani another C+, I think. It was trying hard, but didn't achieve that much. But it wasn't so awful. It was a D. So a couple of C pluses so far in season 24. But Rani would be an E plus for Sadako. Well, I understand. But again, I could watch Time and Rani. I think I quite like Kate Mara performance. So I don't find that a problem to sort of get into that. I don't mind the first two stories at all. But while we're coming up, while Gobby's just dealing with his door, of course, what happened next is bit of a different thing. Hello, Gobby.
Sorry about that.
I went for C+ for Time and Rani. Others have been a little less kind.
Yeah, I'll give it.
Others kind of agree.
Yeah, I'll give it a D.
D, that's fair. Yeah, we've got EDC. It's down that end. No one's giving it a B. That's just not going to happen.
No, that is never going to happen.
Move it along. And then we had a new thing that we had never had before. Really haven't actually this time. A 3-part story.
Yes. Oh, what's going on?
I've done the punishment.
There you go.
But this is also where we need to. I mentioned that the way that the show was produced impacted how the series turned out.
Yeah,
and this is important because, of course, the last two stories of the season are Delta and the Bannerman and Iceworld.
Yeah.
But production-wise, these were made as a 6-parter. And the
Mm.
same was done in each season, but 2 of the stories were grouped together and made as one production block.
Yes.
And the reason for that was so that one show would get the lion's share of the location shooting and one show would get the lion's share of the studio shooting. So Delta and the Bannerman is an entirely location-based story. There's maybe one TARDIS scene at the start of it. There's barely anything studio in it.
No.
And of course, the studio scene for Bannerman would have been recorded at the same sessions as Iceworld. The TARDIS set was up and working. So that impacted how the stories were made. And it worked well in terms of how it went with production this season. It also meant that although we know that Sophie Aldred would become the companion at the end of the season with Ace, it was a bit of a contest with Ray in this story, who was also a potential pick to be the next companion, the Welsh mechanic girl.
The Welsh mechanic girl, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Right.
a lot of stuff was being juggled here, and a lot of the final decision went down to the fact that Bonnie Langford decided that she would take part in Iceworld and complete the season.
Right.
Because
Okay.
otherwise, Ace wouldn't have been ready, and they probably would have gone with Ray.
Yeah.
And the rumor is that the required scenes were shot
Right.
in case
Okay.
they did bring her
Just
in.
in case. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So Doctor Bannerman is all set mostly around a Welsh holiday camp
Yeah.
in the
So,
1950s, in the
yeah.
era of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
And I would not be surprised. I don't know this for a fact. I would have to find out. But I would not be surprised if this was John Nathan Turner's favourite story.
Right.
Because I think
Okay.
the whole tone of Delta and the Bannerman is entirely in keeping with the taste of a Hawaiian shirt.
Well, yes. Yes,
This
indeed.
is just the sort of thing that JNT loves. And I believe he said that it's the closest thing to a musical Doctor Who has ever made.
I can see where he comes from with that. Yeah.
And when you consider that not only the music taking place within the scenes, but also the actual incidental music for the story is sometimes rock and roll,
Mm.
it's very different to any other Doctor Who story in terms of the tone and the music.
Yeah.
And it's got a kind of Dirk Dastardly kind of thing.
Yeah.
What was that old Private Eye? Oh, I can't quite think of the name of it, but you know that kind of feeling, Dirk Gently. No, that's Douglas Adams.
No, it was Douglas Evans, wasn't it? Oh
Warwick
God.
Beatty played him, didn't he?
Oh, Dick Tracy. Was it Dick
Thank
Tracy?
you. Yes.
Dick
There's
Tracy.
a kind of Dick Tracy kind of vibe to it. That
Mm.
kind of chasey kind of vibe. There's a lot
Yeah.
of chasing around.
A lot of
Doctor
running
and
around.
Band.
A lot of
Yeah.
running around in this one. Lots of running around.
But I think the story starts well enough. The Doctor and Mel land in a spaceport,
Yep.
and there's a bunch of aliens, and it's quite fun. They're going through this sort of transformer from these sort of blobby tentacle thing critters turning into the Earth people. I mean, they're
Yeah.
getting on a mock-up 1950s bus to travel
Bus to
through
go there,
hyperspace to Earth. Yeah. And there's a lot of fun nonsense goes on there. And, Mel ends up taking the flight, but also so does... And of course, it actually starts with not a bad quarry battle scene.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's all right. Another
It
quarter,
is
yeah.
this guy who wrote that to be set on a jungle planet and then turn and tell you, oh
Yeah.
no, it's another quarry. Yeah, it's this story. Yeah, that's what this is from.
Yes.
It's this story. But it's not a bad battle scene. I think all the men are green is a bit of a weird choice for the alien,
Very interesting.
stylistically, but okay,
Yeah.
they did it.
Okay.
I think the first impressions of the Bannerman aren't too bad. In the initial fight, and then the Shimmering Queen is fleeing from them, and then also gets on the bus. So now it's about the bus and Galrox and his mercenaries. What is it, Galrox? Wanted to chase them, and it was all leading back to Earth. And then, just as you think nothing else could go wrong, they smack into a satellite and it causes the bus to crash.
Of course.
And then there's a spy who gives the game away and tells them where to find them. And then the Bannermen turn up and start hunting them across the countryside. And it's all kind of role reversed by the use of bees and singing at the end.
Decent singing.
Because there's the Shimmerox baby grows from an egg into a grown teenager over the course of the 3 episodes. And her defensive power is what enables them to ultimately win the day.
Yes, it's the scream they don't like. The Bannermen don't like a scream. I think it was, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
You know, I think the funny thing about this story is that there's parts of the tone of it which want to be really quite dark.
Yeah.
And the Bannermen themselves are trying so hard to be hard while being C-tier extras.
Yes.
Um, but then the jokey, rock and rolly kind of side of it all completely undermines any ability to take them seriously.
Yeah.
And then by part 3, they're stumbling around being stung by lots of bees with honey.
Lots of bees. Yeah.
Right. This is not Doctor Who for the serious Doctor Who fan.
No. Again, it's another fun one. I would put
I
it down.
think if you're not interested in a story which has got spooky atmosphere and convincing drama, but you want something which is just a complete turn your brain off, just enjoy it for the heck of it kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's maybe what they were trying to aim for.
Yeah, it's a more light entertainment.
But
Doctor Who.
it didn't really work at the time.
No,
And it really doesn't work now.
No, it
and I mean, for the time watching it at the time as a fan, it's like, oh, Ken Dodd, oh, fucking tickle stick. I groan. And as he paid his taxes,
yeah.
I mean, Ken, his character, God bless him, and my mother loved him to bits, but at this point, at this time, he wasn't much of a catch.
No.
But it also kind of discredited it a bit because of how people felt.
Well,
if Ken Dodd was in it couldn't be up to that much.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Ken
especially for cynical teenagers.
Oh God, yeah, it would be much these things.
Where do we put it, Gobby? Is it so terrible it's unwatchable? Well, no, it's not. And I proved it to myself because I watched it.
It's not unwatchable.
And I didn't not enjoy it, but it as long as I wasn't pushing it for it to be what it wasn't letting me down.
I think if you accepted it for what it was.
And what Time Prophet says, absolutely, Dalton and the Bannerman is better than anything that Chibnall served up.
Well, absolutely.
I should express it that way.
Yes,
but it is. C- says JWC Reviews. Has he got charm enough to keep it above a D?
Doesn't look like it. Well, dead D.
Not to Matt, not to Cinnamon Toast.
No.
I'm going to have to say, I can't really B+ it. I'm going to have to D it. It is watchable.
It's watchable. It is, as long as you accept it for what it is.
Well, let me put it this way. If I rewatched Underworld for the Tom Baker episode, for our Tom Baker stream, right? Well, for part 2 of Tom Baker stream.
Yeah.
And if I've got my own Underworld DVD and my Dalton and Bannerman DVD both in my hands, and it was a coin toss between them as to which one I watched, I wouldn't mind which way the coin went.
Right. Yeah.
D.
It's a D.
D.
Yeah. D. Yeah.
D.
That's
where we're at. Yeah. But I can completely get it. If some people might like it a lot more, some people might find it full of charm. Some people it might be one of the most charming McCoy stories, and it might actually be a B for them.
Yeah, of course. It looks like.
But I mean, God, can there be anybody who puts it as an A in Doctor Who fandom? There must be somebody, I suppose. It's a big planet. There must be somebody. I can't believe that people who really do love McCoy would score it higher than a D, and I'm totally fair. But objectively, looking at it from 2023, I enjoyed watching it, but it ain't that good.
No, I think
unlike what happened next,
Dragonfire,
where suddenly there was a ray of light penetrated fandom and shone deep into the clouds of despair and said, the show's not over yet, people. And that was the hard solar radiation of its sun cascading across the boiling surface of the planet Spartos, the other side of which was permanently frozen and known only as Iceworld.
Iceworld.
Oh.
Brilliant. Love the music. I love it. I love it.
First up, location, top marks.
Yeah.
This story did itself a massive favour by being set somewhere interesting.
Yes. Does help.
A giant Iceland.
Yes.
On the dark side of a permanently frozen side of a planet that was otherwise permanently boiling.
Yes.
Being run by a very creepy, very freezy, scary guy called Kane.
Oh, Kane was evil.
And his mercenaries, his
Yes.
mind-controlled mercenaries. And meanwhile, there were fantastic bargains to be had in the freezer section. But
Absolutely.
some kind of plot of sinister cosmic significance was being brewed, and it included a time storm in a bedroom that brought the Doctor to encounter a young lady who was to change the rest of his run in the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
welcome,
Iceworld is a powerful story and a triumph, the real first triumph of Andrew Cartmell's approach to the script editing.
Yeah.
Because unlocking the creativity of the script, say, look, don't feel limited in what you can do. Unleash your imagination with Ian Briggs.
Yeah.
And the fantastic sets, which filled the biggest studio, I think, filled TC1.
Yeah.
They really went all out on the sets. And, this was a bold statement story to give season 24 a powerful climax. And, it definitely worked.
Yeah.
It definitely worked. You've also got the return of Tony Selby as Savalon Glitz.
Yeah.
And bringing his charm, wit to it, absolutely lifted it.
Yeah.
And he drives the plot forward by the MacGuffin of the map, with the Doctor and Mel and Dorothy, or Ace as she likes to be known, are going to start to go and investigate. But then, this treasure isn't just a bunch of gold to take away. This treasure is on the move. And this treasure is guarded because it's inside the head of something big enough to be a xenomorph or alien.
Indeed.
With laser beams out of its tricking eyes.
Why not?
So there's high risk involved in this venture.
Now,
Matthew's just referenced the cliffhanger, as others have as well. What happened with the cliffhanger? As I understand it, they just ran out of time to shoot it.
Right.
And you didn't have enough time to shoot the other bits that might have made it make sense.
Yeah.
So when they were left in the edit, all they could do was that.
That was all was left to do, wasn't there? That's all.
And the director is very, very sorry about it, everybody.
Yeah, very sorry. Very, very sorry.
It just ran out of studio time. It was supposed to be trying to get something, but it was missing all the reference stuff as to why he was choosing to do it. So it just looked like he just climbed over the railing for no reason, just dangled there and went, I'm in danger! I did this to myself!
It's exactly what he looked like. Exactly what he looked like.
To be fair, to cliffhangers across the history of Doctor Who, it's not that different than Mary Tam falling off a cliff knot in Stones of Blood. It's quite similar, really. I'm in so much danger. If the camera angle was straightened up, you'd see I was in no danger at all. So not exactly a powerful cliffhanger. Freeze frame at Clara was in shot, which is just very witty.
Yes,
referencing oh god, there's so many other Doctors. Which one is it? Not Night of the Doctor. Name of the Doctor.
Name of the Doctor.
Name of the Doctor. Where we finally find out why Clara was the impossible girl was because she was fragmented throughout time and space and responsible for saving the Doctor everywhere all at once.
Yes, indeed.
Apparently. Don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
And no one ever mentioned it again, by the way. So kind of similar. No, seriously though, I mean, Sophie Aldred just makes such a powerful impression. bolshy, but fiery and just likable and rootable and just so different.
Yeah.
To any other companion that we'd had. Yeah, it was a literal cliffhanger. I'm not saying it wasn't a cliffhanger. it was just a brolly. It was just brolly nonsense. That's all. But, so I mean, she really. I think from her performance in Ice World, Sophie Aldred clearly deserved the companion role right from the start.
Yeah.
And she was so much better for having the opportunity for the audience to get to know her and root for her before she became a companion, unlike Bonnie, who'd had the problem of just being parachuted in, bossing the Doctor around with an exercise bike and some carriages, which didn't get her off to a good start. And also the fact that Bonnie's character never actually did any computer programming ever.
No,
and didn't exactly come across like she'd know what to do with a computer if she saw one.
Yeah, exactly.
The way that she behaves, like so clueless about robots or something in Paradise Towers, and this is someone who's supposed to know about electronics and computers.
Yeah. She's supposed
not
to know
exactly John Nathan Turner, not exactly. But you could believe completely that Ace was a teenage rebel without a clue with destructive tendencies.
Yes.
You can believe that about her from the beginning.
Yeah, you can. Exactly.
It's way too late for the carriages for Colin. Colin needs to be juiced. But I mean, dear, not that I'd recommend it, but I mean, certainly be thin with a little bit of what I've got. But blimey, I mean, I'm the other end of the spectrum talking about who's too fat.
Well, there you go.
So I can't take myself too seriously. I'm Jack Skellington on this end of the scale. But anyway, so let's not make these sort of judgments. Let's not do that. Better not.
No.
But I mean, I was really happy with the story. And I think it stands as a B today. And Sadako, I think political correctness played a part. They could have gone instead where Mel screams at the dragon, but you'd probably deem that as sexist cliche cliffhangers didn't use it. Yeah, they could. Yeah, I mean, that would have been perhaps a more traditional one. Yeah. But that isn't the choice they made. No. I think you may be right, but that might have been a bit deliberate.
Yeah,
and very cruel fanzone article where Ian Berriman admits he finds Ace implausible and comes up with a theory she's a robot programmed by a bad 80s slang made by the Master. Okay.
No. I'll argue with that.
Look, Matt says B minus. I say B. I mean, it was powerful. I mean, I really like the whole frozen mercenary thing. It felt like the menace of Kane putting an army together was real. The guy felt like a threat.
Yeah, he was definitely
and his ending was glorious and also sparked complaints.
Lots of complaints.
Yes, if you can't have someone's face being melted off at 7:30 in the evening, what is world coming to? So it was bold, it was having fun. It was a triumph of a new approach. It clearly was the season winner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And given that the others are, C's and D, I really think it does deserve a B. So I'm going for a B. And if others really can't get on with it, I understand. But I'm trying to look at the era on its merits and acknowledge its faults, but be fair to the episodes regardless. And I think Ian Briggs did a fine job on the writing, and then he was later to come back and give us Curse of Fenric. So again, the core of the story, it ain't too bad, people. So there's no way it's a D for me.
No.
And then that was it. That was the end of season 24. Short and sweet.
Very short.
Here
very
today,
sweet.
Gone again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost. Well, yeah.
But at least we had it. And
at least it arrived.
I think on the whole, fandom was kind of felt a bit happy that we had Sophie Aldred now as the new companion, and that we didn't have Polly Langford anymore.
No, she's gone, and we got Ace.
I kind of do feel it's unfair, But
Yeah.
Hindsight 2023 is a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah, it's
And
a
I
brilliant
do
thing.
think that Bonnie only ever gave the show her absolute best.
Well, yeah,
I mean, she really did.
but
So, and of course, she's gone on to be very successful with the character who maybe even does use a computer keyboard in some of the Big Finish audios.
Well, yes.
So I mean, Mel got fixed.
Got fixed by Big Finish. Yeah.
But going on what's on the screen, she did do her level best, and she only meant the best, but it wasn't the best.
No, it wasn't.
Unlike what we got dished up at the start of the next season, which was, I mean, it was the show jumped up on Quantum to a new level.
Oh God, yeah.
When it gave us, how could we forget, the remembrance of the Daleks.
Oh,
I must admit, I've never really understood the title. What we were supposed to forget about the Daleks, but we now have to remember.
Yeah.
We never knew in the first place. Is
No.
it the Doctor? Is it Doctor remembering it? Is it the Doctor remembering he left the kettle on?
Must be something like that.
Okay, it's an R word. Dalek stories in the 80s have to have an R word. It makes about as much sense as that to me. But if anyone's got a better case for why it's remembrance of the Daleks, I mean, what would be wrong with Revenge of the Daleks, Gobby?
Nothing.
Rampage of the Daleks.
Rampage.
Rampage of the Daleks. Yeah.
That would have been better. But remembrance.
But we got remembrance. But it
That's
mostly because it was actually the 25th year of the show. That's why it was remembrance. It's the Memberberries.
Oh, there you go.
A decade before South Park, we still had Memberberries.
Memberberries.
And in this case, we had so many Memberberries. It was called November 1963 and Totter's Yard.
Yes.
With IG Foreman on the gate in Totter's Yard in yet another location in this alternate version of the Doctor Who universe. Seems to have completely metamorphosed since Attack of the Cybermen a couple of years before. But nevertheless, Totter's Yard, and it is rather glorious. And we're thrust into the action straight away in this story.
Literally.
Quite remarkably for a Doctor Who story, it starts with a powerful intro sequence, which wasn't usual.
No,
the show would usually start straight to titles, and then the story would start. The intro sequence, as a regular device, obviously, there isn't an episode of New Who that doesn't have it.
No,
it's because, but at the time, it was a real standout, and we see the Dalek spacecraft. Well, I mean, I think we can assume it's a Dalek spacecraft because it says Daleks in the title, so it's not as if we're trying to hide this. So we see the Dalek spacecraft approaching Earth and 1963-esque radio snippets radiating out before we go into the Sting and the Doctor Who titles. And then it's the Doctor and Ace spilling onto the streets of 1960s London with a ghetto blaster and a backpack with a baseball bat in it.
Shoveled in, yes.
So we can see straight away that new companion Ace, she's coming for business. And she's also, within the first couple of minutes, she's talking about her Nitro 9. So we know that she's tooled up. And what we get pulled into is an exceptionally pacey, non-stop introduction episode.
Oh, yeah. It goes at a good pace.
Yeah, and first there's grey Daleks hiding in a shed that have got to be rocket launched and end up getting taken out by a pile of bricks. With the wrong kind of Dalek inside, and then there's back at the school, and there's a transmat station, and the Doctor thinks he stopped it, but maybe he didn't stop it as well as he thinks he did. But that Dalek looks different because it's a white Dalek.
It's a white one.
So what's going on here?
Yes,
and it doesn't take us long to realise that the humans, soldiers of the Doctor and Ace, are caught up in a war between two different factions of Daleks.
Yes, civil war.
Civil war. The Doctor is acting quite unusual.
Yeah.
He's clearly planning something right from the beginning. There's no accident to this story. This is all deliberate. This is all chosen.
Yes, this
And
is,
it's
yeah.
the Doctor making it happen.
Yes, he's pushing it
So
from behind.
in another very unusual feature of Remembrance of the Daleks is that in effect the Doctor is his own antagonist.
Yes.
Because he's brought this fight to Earth at this time. And he's laid plans and traps beforehand. And he's got the Hand of Omega stashed away, ready to use. So this was a version of a Doctor that we hadn't seen. And this was a version of a Doctor that was miles away from the pratfall tumbling spoon player of
Yes.
Time and Irani.
Yeah.
So, the show is trying to tell us that it means business, and it's being to a large extent convincing because the effects are really delivering.
Yeah.
The extermination effect, you were using a pullback wire to really make it dramatic.
Yes.
And, of course, the first episode ends on the Dalek actually levitating up a staircase. So
Yes.
ignore anyone who tells you Daleks couldn't fly or go upstairs in Classic Who. They are ignorant.
Good. Yes.
They are ignorant. That was not a New Who innovation.
Nope.
Yeah, and I mean, the story just starts to really rock along. I mean, part 2 has got the wonderful schoolroom set piece with Ace and the now souped up Hand of Omega baseball bat
Nice.
laying into an Imperial Dalek. Oi! Who you calling small? Boink, boink, boink.
Boink.
Yeah, and then away goes the ray go, pew, 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 with his glass is shattering, and a clattering, and diving under the stools, and jumping through the window, all done in one take with no chance for a reshoot.
Yeah, it's one take job. Oh,
fantastic stuff, and then taking out another Dalek on the way down the stairs for good measure.
Awesome, brilliant.
What
a great
but ending with Ace being menaced by multiple Daleks trying to fit a rocket launcher. Somebody somewhat overwhelmed. And the Doctor turns up at start 3 with his Dalek glittered paralysing gun that somehow doesn't appear again in the whole story, but never mind.
Yeah, it's gone.
And then part 3 progresses to the dramatic climax of the landing of the Dalek shuttle in the school playground.
Yes.
Again, way above anything was shown, pulled off before.
Yep.
Never had a spaceship landing from the sky.
Nope.
As a practical
effect.
Set almost.
Yeah.
It was like it's lowering a set, because it's a set inside. It was really up something.
Yeah.
But as much as I was enjoying the story, and of course it escalates and then ends up with the fantastic special weapons Dalek bringing it large. Some really, really big explosions. Ones that were big enough to set off every alarm of a mile in every direction in London when we did the bang to blow up the Ratcliffe gates. That was a damn big bang, that was. I loved the story on transmission all the way through until the end of part 3.
Yeah.
But I did have a problem with part 4. And the reason is that as a fan, I was watching it and going, my God, here we are, a story where the Daleks are actually leading their own story again.
Yeah.
And we don't have Davros. We've got the Emperor Dalek instead. We've not seen him since Evil of the Daleks.
No.
And then part 4 happened.
And
I have to say, I'm sure many people don't feel like this, but at the time, the return of Davros was not welcomed by me. I felt it dragged the story down. I felt it robbed the Daleks of what would have been a much more powerful story without him. Why couldn't it have been the Emperor Dalek who was responsible for the hubris to destroy Skaro? I mean, I just felt it was disappointing that after 13 years, half the life of the show, we just couldn't get a Dalek story about Davros anymore.
Yeah.
And to put him in the last part where he actually wasn't needed and the story was doing fine without him, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I personally liked it, but yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take away from the story at
No,
all.
no, it doesn't take
It
away
doesn't
from it at all.
detract from the quality of the story that we have today. But I just want to get it out there that I wasn't welcome to Davros being back again. And I don't think it's Davros's best appearance.
No, I agree. It's not his best appearance.
I mean, let's be
agree with
honest, it's not his best scripted moments either, is it?
Not
Oh,
really.
Doctor, how have you outwitted me again? Oh, no.
Yeah.
So, you know, I whatever mark we give it, I'm going to be knocking a pip off because Davros turned up.
didn't really need to be there.
And I'm going to knock another pip off
Oh.
for the Black Dalek just suiciding itself because it couldn't handle the situation, man. And we hadn't seen a suicidally depressed Dalek since Death to the Daleks.
No, exactly.
I have failed. Oh no, meltdown. Oh, whoa. It's the same rubbish.
Yeah.
Is that a Dalek?
Not really. I don't think it would be a Dalek.
Is a Dalek ever so depressed that it just kills itself?
I don't think so.
I mean, if it was the last Dalek in existence, and the Doctor's there right in front of it saying, "You've lost, Black Dalek, but he's got a working gun."
Yes.
It's another minus.
Okay, fair enough.
Those two criticisms aside, which are really story criticisms,
yeah,
I equally will praise Ben Aranovich.
Because
his whole approach to writing the show was so fresh. His approach to writing the Daleks was so effective. And the themes that he put in, the way he played with the material, the way he filled the episodes with action, it's a glorious success.
Oh, God, yeah. Brilliant. A brilliant one.
But it's not an A+ because of Davros. No. And it's not an A because of Suicidal Black Daleks. It's an A-.
It's an A-. Oh, interesting.
Because, you know, with those two story quibbles aside, I can't overlook just how good the whole thing is top to bottom.
Oh, it's a brilliant one.
And everybody was on top ball. There's not a bad performance anywhere. Everyone's pulling their weight. It really showed that the show still cared to show it had fight in it going into the 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
So I think it's a show that Doctor Who fandom should be proud of.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It's quite obviously the McCoy story that most people would show someone first to introduce them to his Doctor.
Well, I said it
because it is an unequivocal A.
Yeah.
And that's the first one we've got. Will we see another? Questions. But I mean, everyone seems to agree. Even Time Prophet gives it a B.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great episode. It's, as we said before, it's one of those episodes that goes into the, you know, when you want to, someone says, "Show me what Doctor Who's good at." This is one of those episodes that you play. Go watch that one. You know, and
it's also important to notice that with the Cartmelism here.
Yeah.
Because of other parallels with Andrew Cartmel and more recent Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And politics is a very key part of it.
Yes.
Because, I mean, with the Power of the Doctor last November and Sophie Aldred returning to the show, there were a lot of features about Ace. And I noticed a lot of the articles being written about it. Of all the badges on Ace's jacket, they're honing on one badge, which is, of course, the hammer and sickle USSR Soviet symbol on her sleeve.
Yeah.
So this was a show that was putting the hammer and sickle on a teenage girl's sleeve at the time before the Berlin Wall had fell.
Yeah.
And Andrew Cartmel himself, self-avowed Marxist, and both Sylvester and Sophie come from a left-wing theatre tradition. So, you know, the show was very much in the hands of the political left.
Yep.
At a time where the Conservative Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher had just had her third most potent, her most potent third electorate victory.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Maggie did fall not that long later, sort of 91, wasn't it? But back in 87, her power was at its height. So, you know, when she did fall, she fell quick. But in 87, the economy was at its best, her vote was at its highest. And this is at a time that Doctor Who is looking to get Marxist messaging into it. And this isn't any kind of conspiracy theory. This is quite straightforward.
Yep.
In that this is what Andrew Cartmore has said is part of what they were looking to do. And that especially influences the next story, the Happiness Patrol.
The Happiness Patrol, yes.
Which was the all studio based story to go against the location work that had been given to make Remembrance so good. You know, so that story block gave Remembrance its extra, and then it had to be studio only. So very tightly contained, like a play for today.
Yeah.
I really love the absurdities in the Happiness Patrol. It's so over the top, especially for Candyman.
Yeah.
I think that was a lot of people were taking the piss out of this story when it went out. Doctor Who being menaced by Bertie Bassett's. And it was in the press when the story was going out, you know. So the show was getting mocked for Candyman, but it's actually really effective and sinister, and definitely gives the heart of the feel of the story. And then you've got the colony of Terra Alpha, isn't it?
Yeah, Terra Alpha.
So yeah,
Terra Alpha. Yeah.
And again, the Doctor is being extremely Machiavellian. Again, he's not turned up by accident.
No,
he's turned up because he's heard that there's trouble here, and not only that, he's turned up to overthrow this society overnight. When I rewatched this yesterday, it really struck me how terrifying that idea is. But a stranger could just turn up like a veritable whirlwind and just overthrow all the tables and just transform everything in one night.
Yep.
You know, I mean, obviously the Doctor is a good character, but something there speaks about the danger of a Time Lord. But this is a species that can see the weave of fate finely enough to know what strings to pull. And like later in a Christmas Invasion, you know, I could bring you down with just 6 guys. Doesn't she look tired? You know, same thing. Same thing. And a lot of the things that RTD was tapping into when he kind of went with the Doctor down his lonely god route.
Yeah.
Were definitely being set up in the Cartmel era. And the next story actually is part of that, which we'll get into when we get there. Yeah. So you've got this kind of morality play going on. And now Time Prophet mentioned what I think everybody knows by now, which is that Helen A was supposed to be Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's quite as simple as that, because I really don't think Helen A would make sense to be Margaret Thatcher, because, you know, I don't know why people got the idea she'd want to kill people off for being miserable. She'd more want to inspire them to get a job and stop relying on socialism. So, you know, I that part of it didn't really work. But I think what it was really about was the Dennis Thatcher thing.
Yeah.
With what was her partner's name? Joseph something perhaps, but was it Harold? But I can't remember what the character's name was. But he's her husband, and in the end he comes out on top. Sorry, dear, I'm just keep a shit for the money.
Yeah,
it Harold is Harold.
Harold Innocent.
Yeah, and that maybe is maybe a pastiche on Harold Wilson
Yes,
as well.
I think so. Yeah.
But the idea of being a sort of apparently weak guy who really knows what's going on and who gets out when the going is good. I mean, it was all supposed to insult Margaret Thatcher with some pretty basic stereotypes.
Yeah.
I don't actually think it's all that clever when you look back at it. A bit of cock and snoot, just like thumb your nose, isn't it? But hey, that's what people did on BBC salary in those days.
Well, yeah.
I don't think it's changed much. So
actually, yeah,
it really hasn't changed.
Yeah, Sadiko corrected us. It's actually Joseph C. was.
God, right, okay, we're getting there. We're getting
there.
So I mean, you will have a very different view of the story being born outside the factory because we were part of the context in which it arose.
Yeah, exactly.
And the mood of that time.
Yes.
But I think it's a perfectly effective morality tale kind of story. It's certainly engaging, enjoyable. I mean, perhaps a little pretentious.
Yeah, a little bit. A little
bit pretentious.
A little bit.
But that's not the worst crime.
No.
Do I feel it hit a B? I know this would be an A for some people.
Yeah. I'd give it.
I know how much the real McCoy fans really do rate Happiness Patrol. I can't go anywhere near an A. I just don't find it interesting enough.
Yeah. I'd say the thing is, I give it an A minus. I really quite like the story.
You really quite like it. I mean, it's similar to Varos, isn't it? But
yes, very similar. Cute dog though.
Yeah, cute dog though. Do I feel it was a B? I don't really, Gobby. I think it's a C plus to me.
That's okay. That's fine.
I mean,
a lot of people.
I just think, what can I say that I could think would lift it into B area? I'm just a bit old for it, perhaps. Stupid politics.
Stupid politics. Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. But I hadn't watched it in a long time, and I didn't miss rewatching it when I rewatched it yesterday.
Right, fair enough.
So, it didn't make that much of a positive re-impression on me either. So, yeah, C plus is where I'm at.
Okay, fair enough.
But a decent story, not absolutely, a solid enough, another 3 weeks along with the season. And then it happened, Silver Nemesis.
Silver Nemesis. Yeah.
Right. Now, I mentioned about production blocks.
Yep.
And how the McCoy was made. Well, Silver Nemesis was tied with Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Now, Greatest Show in the Galaxy encountered a catastrophic problem during its production, and it was being made first.
Right.
The BBC studio was found to be filled with asbestos.
I
think that was it. Otherwise, it was a strike. But no, I think it was asbestos.
Yes.
So there wasn't, all of a sudden, with it due to go into studio production, there wasn't a studio to produce it in.
It wasn't safe.
But in a remarkable turn of good luck, the story was set inside a circus tent.
Ta-da! Problem solved.
So the solution was to put a circus tent in the BBC parking lot.
There you go.
But the problem was that's in the middle of central London. In a tent, and they're trying to film scenes and dialogue, which meant it took an excruciatingly long time to get it done, and that horrifically squeezed the rehearsal time for Silver Nemesis.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Silver Nemesis, we have to, I think, to be fair to it, we have to understand right from the start, this is a production that the cast barely were able to rehearse.
Yeah, they didn't have much of a chance.
No, we're talking about Silver Nemesis.
Yes,
but I'm giving it the context
Give
of
it,
what
yeah.
happened with Greatest Show
Try to
in the
put it in context
Galaxy
a bit. Yeah.
because of how much it impacted the production. In fact, there are scenes in the final transmitted version of Silver Nemesis that had no rehearsal whatsoever.
It was just straight off the script, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Completely straight
So
off the script.
times when that happened in Doctor Who are very few and far between, and it definitely impacted the final product.
And it did.
But so did the scripting,
Yeah, the
because
script
Silver
did that.
Nemesis again is one of those stories with a significantly longer, and I actually have seen this one because it was released on VHS in the 90s, longer version.
A
Do
lot
you remember
longer.
the VHS Silver Nemesis special edition copy with
Yeah,
extra minutes?
yeah, lots of extra minutes actually.
Yes.
And it made more sense with the minutes.
Of course, it made more sense.
Lot more
So,
sense.
on top of having no rehearsal, Silver Nemesis also had to get savage to fit into transmission time in the edit.
And it got cut quite badly. Really quite badly.
So there's more problems with it. But contexting aside, it gets off to quite a good start.
It's all right.
And you've got the Doctor and Ace chilling with Courtney Pine with the jazz.
Yeah.
But then some mysterious ear muff wearing assassins come after them and chase them into a river where they narrowly avoid getting shot. And then the Doctor uses his new improved ultra better ghetto blaster he just made for Ace to start tracking down what's going on. And it leads them swiftly to a deserted airfield. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of Nazis setting out from South America. Sorry, damn it, YouTube. Bad German people from World War II.
Yes, bad people from World War II.
Setting off from South America.
Yes.
And a woman in Elizabethan times using magic to travel to the future with her henchman after cutting her astrologer's throat. And he only told her the truth, bless him. What a meanie.
That was horrible.
What a meanie.
What a horrible thing to occur.
And we learn it's all revolving around a comet due to return to Earth, due to crash into the Earth later that day. A comet containing a mysterious statue called Nemesis. And as we're finding these things out, who turns up but the Cybermen?
Of course.
Quite an impressive cliffhanger. And they all look really quite something as they sort of come out one diagonal, other diagonal, one diagonal, other diagonal, sort of stream out of their spaceship. And you can see that they've been updated and they've got kind of like archery gloves on now. And they can look like they've got fingers taped together for pulling a bow. Yes. And they're kind of goldier as well as silverier. And they're a new flight suit as well because all the leads are going in a different direction. So they've been updated and they look rather spiffing. And part one ends, and it all seemed rather interesting. Then part 1 and 2 happened. Then it ended.
Yes, then it ended.
Look, the biggest problem with Silver Nemesis is the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Not what they look like, but how they behave.
Yeah, they
don't. And how freaking stupid they are.
They are dumb.
They are on the thickier side of cyber thickies.
Indeed.
And they've now degenerated so much that even just a gold arrow will finish them off. And it's all a bit sad. And they just don't have the power in the story. And the fear in the story is supposed to be that there's this great big cyber fleet, but it's just a picture on a scanner, and it's just taken out by an explosion on a screen at the end. And it just doesn't land in terms of the Cybermen being a threat.
No.
And at the same time, you've got the Lady Painfoot character, and later on in Battlefield, the Morgana character falls, I think, even deeper into the same trap, who's played in Battlefield by Jane Marsh, which is that this is a character who rationalizes the world in terms of magic.
Yeah.
And That's always very dangerous territory with Doctor Who.
Very, yes.
Because, especially if you consider a story like the Daemons in the Pertwee era, people might interpret Azael as the devil. Azael might be prepared to use tricks and illusions to scare people and make them think he's a devil.
Yep.
But Azael himself does not think he is the devil, and his universe works on science. He just happens to look like what we think the devil looks like. Whereas Lady Painful is using a magical spell and a magical potion to brew up a time storm.
Yes.
That's not very Doctor Who.
No, not really, is it?
I mean, we could work around it. And as Time Prophet says, any suitably advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Yes, but the difference is, in those sci-fi scenarios, such an alien knows it's technology, not magic.
Yeah.
If that alien thought it was doing magic, but really it was technology, but the alien didn't even know it was technology, you're getting into some very thin ground. Yeah. So when you have a character like Lady Painful using magic that she thinks is magic and it working, it actually shows that the writer, oh God, what's his name? Oh God, completely gone off my brain.
What, the writer?
Yeah, it'll come back to you in a moment.
Kevin Clark?
Kevin Clark, yeah. First time he'd ever written for the show.
Yeah.
And in interviews with Kevin Clark, what we might think he might be aiming for with the sort of Doctor More mysterious stuff in Silver Nemesis, on top of the Doctor More mysterious stuff in Remembrance of the Daleks and the Doctor acting mysterious stuff in Happiness Patrol, is we might think that these are all connected. But in fact, Clark is quite straightforward. He decided that the Doctor was God.
Yeah. Basically.
And the big secret behind Doctor Who was that the Doctor was God. And that if anybody ever found out that his real name was God, then Doctor Who wouldn't be able to help us, because Doctor Who has to help us without us realising it's God.
Right. Yeah.
In other words, his ideas were pretty whack. And not only that, but he was kind of interpreting Silver Nemesis through a sort of quasi-religious kind of lens.
Yeah.
Which totally doesn't come across when you actually watch it on the screen, really.
No, it doesn't. He doesn't show.
But when you think about what's in the writing and the way he's trying to portray these themes, you know, and Lady Painful and the Nazis as the devil and the Doctor is good, and the Cybermen, I don't know what his theme was with the Cybermen. That's probably why you don't really know what he's doing with them.
No, I think.
So a creative story, but not a well-controlled one, with definitely major issues with knowing who was supposed to actually be the threat, and not doing a great job of making any of them the threat. Yeah. And it just was a bit disappointing. On top of the problems of it just not having any of the polish, because a lot of the sort of ad libs and stuff to help scenes work better is done in rehearsal, and it just wasn't there. Yeah. As Sadako says, proof for Cartwheel Master Plan can sometimes go wrong. I think proof for Cartwheel Master Plan was actually half a back of a fag packet, and it was filled in after the fact a few years later. Might also be part of it. Was it really what he was really trying to do, or was that ideas for the afterwards? Yeah, you can take it how you want. But the actual evidence is what was produced on the screen at the time. And on the basis of that, I find Silver Nemesis a bit painful.
It is painful.
I'd like to feel a bit happy about it, but I don't really. Its biggest redeeming factor is Ace's fight with the Cybermen on the gantry in part 3. Yeah. Which actually that was filmed on the site of Greenwich, so all of that was demolished not that long afterwards to start the Millennium Dome.
Shame.
But that scene would never be filmed today, because there was no rail Once
No.
you got past the actual handrail, there was nothing between the gantry and falling. So that bit where H crouches down to fire her catapult at the Cyberman's chest as they're
Yep.
approaching her, if she'd have wobbled on her ankles and lost her balance there, she would have
She'd
tipped.
gone. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That would never be allowed to happen today.
No.
Ever. It was
No.
freaking dangerous up there. And if
Oh,
you
yeah.
look at it, you can see just how freaking dangerous that was.
Yes.
So, considering what we needed to her next year, that wasn't really very good. And but the other thing which was effective was the fight out with the evil World War II people at the start of Part 2, which put a decent amount of effort in.
They did.
You know, and I mean, obviously the money went up front on Remembrance this season, but a fair bit was kept by for Silver Nemesis 2. It just didn't pull off the same.
No, unfortunately.
And, you know, I think if Kevin Clark had been writing under Eric Saywood, it would not have gone down like that.
No.
You know, so as Sadako rightly said, you know, sometimes the Cartwheel Master Plan, you know, didn't quite succeed. I think Silver Nemesis is the biggest story that shows that, actually.
Yeah.
Because his aspirations are left feeling hollow, undelivered, and pretentious.
Yeah, it's not good.
And Stephen Moffat didn't do any better messing about with the who is the Doctor really question either. And you can see that by how bottom of New Who, well, Moffat Who anyway, season 7 is seen as. It's not a question fans have ever really wanted answering.
No, we don't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need.
I've been more interested in why is the Doctor and what is the Doctor than who is the Doctor. Now, Gobby, I'm going to have to step out the stream for just a minute.
No problem.
Could you put me in the back room? And,
no problem,
I'll
mate.
be back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries. There you go. Maybe it's all right. It's John has some medical intervention to do. So while we're doing that, Jack was going to be on the stream today. Unfortunately, he can't be here, but he has done his review in his own way. So what I'm going to do is, while we're getting John do his thing, I'm going to read out what Jack said, and you can see what you think. I'm quite surprised, actually. So he thinks Time and the Rani was fun. Paradise Tower is the worst story until Chris Chibnall arrived. Fair enough. Delta and the Bannerman, really love. He really loves that one. Thinks it's a great one. Dragonfire was just weird. Remembrance of the Daleks, one of the best Dalek stories ever. Silver Nemesis is so fun to watch. So there you go. The greatest show in the galaxy, brilliant. Battlefield, I'll keep going. I know we haven't got to this, but I'll get these out of the way. So we've covered it. Battlefield is camp and silly. But the Destroyer is amazing. Ghostlight, what is even happening? Curse of the Phoenix, so amazingly dark. And Survival, a perfect way for the show to end. And he's over. How did Jack like over the Saturday? He hasn't said. He's just literally quickly sent me. He just quickly sent me over that because he's currently not available. Okay, and we can now, as I've just quickly run through them, bring John back on. Hello, John.
Hello, everybody. Well, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, I am now getting care visits.
Yes.
So I have a care visit that now happens around this time in the evening, but it's all right, and my carer is very helpful and isn't going to interrupt the stream, so we can carry on.
Yeah, just to let you know, while you were away doing your thing, I read out Jack's summary of the series, basically.
Oh, right, okay.
Did you hear it or not? Because if you
no, I didn't. Because I was talking to. I took my headphones off.
No worries. So I'll give you what I've just given the chap, which is he found the Time in the Rani was fun. Paradise Tower is the worst story until Chris Chibnall turned up. Delta and the Animal was really loves. He thought that was a great one.
Now,
he
isn't
found
that interesting?
it
The
is
reverse,
yeah
yeah. Okay.
yes Dragonfire he found just weird.
Okay.
Remembrance of the Daleks, one of the best Dalek stories ever.
Everyone agrees.
Everybody agrees with that. Happiness Patrol, shit, but with some good ideas, which is fair enough.
That's about where we were, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready for this? Silver Nemesis, so fun to watch. He really enjoyed it. So
Yeah,
there
there
you
you
go.
go. Sometimes it is so bad it's good.
Yeah, and then we go.
But for me, Silver Nemesis is definitely in that category. But hey,
Yeah, yeah,
he
and
loves
then we
it.
go. The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. He thought was brilliant.
Oh, let's save his last few.
Yeah, well, save his
Let's not splurge from ahead of time because everybody else is waiting.
Yes,
He can wait as well. There's such a thing as delayed gratification, young man.
yes,
Okay, so then we get to Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
yeah,
And I've already talked about it a little bit with the fact that it had to get made in a circus tent in the middle of central London.
yes.
So, first off, wow, they worked so hard to achieve this story. They worked so hard to save this story.
They really did have to work
Because
hard
it
on.
actually really could have been very cancelled and we would just have had a 3-story season for the 25th year. It really could have happened.
Yep.
So it took ingenuity, creativity, and grit, and just enormous amount of hard work to make this story. And on top of which, it's a great story.
It's a very good story.
It's extremely sinister and intriguing, pulling you in as the Doctor and Ace receive an invitation to attend the psychic circus.
Yes.
And they follow the coordinates, and the TARDIS materializes, and then they start to travel over to the circus itself. They find other people who are coming to see it or to take part in it. Meanwhile, inside the circus, something very funny is going on, and some of the acts seem to be coming to a grisly end. With this mysterious mother, father, and daughter watching the acts,
Yes.
while there is an incredibly creepy clown
Oh, a
going
very creepy
around
clown. The chief
grabbing
clown.
the people who've tried to escape and bringing them back to the terrors of the psychic circus. I feel the story works well. I feel it unfolds well, and I find it engaging. So I was really quite intrigued by Greatest Show in the Galaxy at the time it went out. I thought it was perhaps it was a huge improvement on Happiness Patrol and Silver Nemesis for me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it gets a little bit twee at the end, perhaps. With the actual confronting the gods of Ragnarok, maybe could have been done with not being shot in a fully lit studio, but given a bit of atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's just a generic problem with 80s television. It's fine if you want to do a sitcom, darling, but not if you want to actually evoke some sort of atmosphere, And yet again, that scene suffers from that. I mean, think about how that would have been done today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The backlighting.
But then that also shows the strength of the power of the ideas.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
that speaks to the core of the story. I think the story is sound. And I think the production is largely sound. And the performance is sound. And it comes up in the high marks for me. What about you, Gobby?
I love this one.
Yeah, you love it.
I love it, although I'm not a huge fan of clowns. So for me, when I was, I didn't like the clown at all. But then again, that was part of the attraction to it as well, because I've always seen clowns as evil things, and it was just enjoyable. It's one of those really good stories.
What Time Prophet has said here is actually really interesting. In that he's right. The studio light technicians have their own union, so all the lights had to be bright. That's absolutely right. That was the curse of Warriors of the Deep, for example, just trying to get the buggers to agree to turn the damn lights down. But if they turn them up, if they turn them down, they might not go. So the light bulb replacing union man, you can see how it goes, Gobby.
Yeah. Oh, the
You know,
unions were
the
ruining
heavily
everything.
unionised 80s BBC. Good grief. But what's interesting about that is, of course, Greatest Show in the Galaxy had to be shot in an actual circus tent,
In a real
which
tent. Yeah.
doesn't have a BBC studio lighting grid.
No.
So
Which,
maybe that's part of why this story works so well.
yeah. Because
Is that
well,
it
yeah.
couldn't
It's there.
be fully overlit. But if the whole thing was set on studio on TC1, it would all have been lit as bright as the Gods of Ragnarok.
Oh God, yeah, you'd have been, yeah, they'd have disappeared into the light.
The sudden discovery of vast amounts of asbestos did this story a favour,
It actually helped, didn't
even
it?
though Silver Nemesis kind of paid the price.
Yes. I also thought it was quite interesting because this is where Sylvester McCoy was actually taught some magic tricks.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who was known as the Great Soprendo. He was actually taught such while in between the breaks. He was actually teaching Sylvester McCoy some magic tricks, which is a little bit of
fantastic. Mate, always the kind of man to pick up some new tricks if he can.
Oh yeah,
never a man to say his bone is too old.
No.
Yeah, I mean that's his whole career is learning and sharing.
But it's just those little things that sometimes you think, oh right, yeah.
Although he didn't survive the story because the explosion when from the tent entrance in part 4, when the Gods of Ragnarok exploded, and he's kind of walking out. That was too close by lots.
Whoa, yeah, okay.
So the fact that McCoy didn't just shit himself and jump 6 foot in the air, enormous amount said for his self-control, but you can actually see him wince.
Yeah, he knew it was close. Yeah, he knew it was close.
And you can kind of tell, his face goes grim, doesn't it? Someone's getting it. After this scene is finished, someone's getting a bloody earful for that.
Yeah, because it was like the realization it was, that was a little bit too close.
All the suffering worth it, though, in the name of great art.
Brilliant.
Maybe just a couple of things just slightly besmirch it for me. A-.
Yeah, I'd give it a good A. I'd give it a good A. I enjoyed this.
And is this right? Is this Sadako's favourite story? Says Matthew Pounder.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Did Sadako say that? I took my eyes off, so I don't know if he did or didn't.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, but if so, it's a good choice because it's an A-.
It's a great story. It's a great story.
So actually,
really
if you want to know where the action is in the Sylvester McCoy's era, it's definitely in half of season 25. Because 2 of the stories are really unmissable on that basis.
They are. They go another A.
Which kind of, everyone liking it.
Everybody likes it.
Which is kind of, just the whole cosmic joke about Doctor Who all over again, because we started season 26 on a battlefield. Right. Okay. I want to know right from the start, have we got any super duper hardcore fans of Battlefield in the chat?
Yeah,
is there anybody who really thinks Battlefield is a great Doctor Who story? I just like to poll the chat before we even start.
It'd be interesting to see.
So anybody going to stand up for Battlefield?
Anyone going to say it's awesome, brilliant, amazing? Anyone? There you go.
Copy. Yes, says Disaster Area.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you might want to skip the next 10 minutes, then, mate. I'm about to say some things about it.
Oh, there you go.
Look, honestly, what Matt Parry just said, good, not brilliant.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of have to go goodish, not good.
Right, fair enough.
In a bit more. Battlefield is a story that looked great on paper.
Yeah.
And of course, you would think you were on a hot winner here because it's the man who delivered last season is back again.
Yes, indeed.
Benovanovich.
Yep.
So if he could put it off with the Daleks, he could put it off with some knights in armour.
Yeah.
But does he? And we're back to the Doctor being mysterious, and back to the Doctor manipulating this whole situation, and back to the Doctor set all this up donkey's years ago. Only in Battlefield, there's actually messages passing between time zones, between different versions of the Doctor somehow. So don't quite ask me how that's supposed to work. But the big conceit is that actually the Doctor, as well as being God, is now Merlin.
Of course he's Merlin. Of course.
It kind of could have made sense. It kind of could have made sense. I mean, if anyone's going to get themselves enmeshed in the real origins of the Arthurian legend, it's going to be the Doctor.
Yep.
And you know, it is definitely a good on paper story. But I feel that it really was the production end that didn't realise the script's potential.
Yeah.
It looks awful, all just shot on outside broadcast videotape.
Yeah, it's not brilliant.
It just doesn't look interesting. And on top of which, the action pieces lack a sense of commitment.
Yeah.
It feels like somebody really needs to rev everybody up before shouting action.
Yeah, they do. You know? They do seem a bit. They don't seem
Whereas
very motivated.
The action sequences in Red Members of the Daleks and the ones later in Curse of Fenric is so much better than what we got here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And on top of which, there's performance problems.
Yeah.
Not with Sophie Aldred and Sylvester McCoy. And absolutely not with Nicholas Courtney, who frankly saved part 4 of this.
The Brigadier was brilliant in this.
Because at this point, there weren't a lot of story left by part 4.
No.
You know, so Nick Courtney absolutely pulled out the nostalgia berries and gave this at least something. But on the whole, it was all kind of flat. And Jean Marsh didn't feel like she believed it to me, and I watched a part again this afternoon to make sure I wasn't being too harsh. And no, I still don't believe she believes it. I just don't think it's a good performance from her. As much as she's 60s TV royalty, former wife of John Pertwee, and former companion, was she a companion, Sarah Kingdom from Direct Master Plan. Her performance in Battlefield does not work for me, but I think perhaps it's also back to his resistance with the line between magic and technology in Doctor Who, which once again, this story thoroughly walks all over.
Of course.
But again, this is why I find the Morgana character hard to believe, because she so clearly has a superstitious primitive mentality.
Yeah. So
this isn't a woman who thinks in terms of quantum physics.
No.
And so you've got this dynamic, you know, between the Doctor and Morgana, and then there's the other guy who's trying to be the new Arthur, and, you know, and then there's Unit caught in the middle of it, and they just happen to be moving a missile because Unit's always moving a missile when aliens show up.
They're always shifting around.
So there's a distinct averageness ultimately about all of this because of production, because of how it was lit, because of how it was shot, and because of the performances from the cast. And it's made worse in my view in part 4 because you've really got a pointless end villain. Because you've got the Destroyer, who's not even introduced until part 4.
No.
If he'd been introduced earlier as a much more credible threat, if the whole point was to stop the Destroyer being released, he would have had a lot more impact. But as it was just like, well, you can release me if you like. Oh, I'm released now. Oh, I'm going to do roaring noise. Oh, no, he shot himself with bullets. Bye.
Yeah.
As a villain, it achieved nothing. I mean, as a monster, it was an excellent mask.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant mask.
Certainly got praise for this show at the time by how good the Destroyer's mask was. But in 2023, that just doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
It's not a selling feature of the story anymore. And I just, as a writer, I would have had the Destroyer in charge.
Yeah.
Have Morgana actually working for him, have everything seem to be resolved and the Doctor seemed to have defeated Morgana, but suddenly defeating her unleashes the Destroyer. The Doctor's in a situation he didn't anticipate and hasn't got under control, and then Alistair Gordon, Lethbridge Stewart, has to make a genuine sacrifice to save
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
If they had the balls to do that and the balls to actually give the Brigadier a proper send-off, I think this story could have scored so much higher.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Even with the wonky production, I think if there'd been a far better impact to the end of the story, a far better point to it, I think it would have worked a lot better as a story. And I just, my writer's head sees that. I don't like missed opportunities, Gobby.
Yeah. And this was one.
Was one.
Yeah.
Because it didn't land like it needed to.
No.
And there's various bits that let it down, and I do think it's where it's this between magic technology. You cannot get it wrong in Doctor Who, or it comes unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are going to have, say, the Destroyer is a bona fide hell demon from Hell Demon. Even if you do that, then you've got to sort of then commit to going, hey, there's this dimension of these beings who the Doctor's rules don't apply to. You know, even if you don't go, they're not really devils, they're trans-dimensional aliens or whatever. It's got to be rooted in the fact that this is science fiction, not science fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think Battlefield fails the story, but it didn't get it. Do I find we also got the infamous scene in the ship with the filming of the water tank scene. I mean, it is said, Sophie Aldred could have died doing this.
Yeah.
I don't think she was in any danger of drowning. I think the danger was rather more electrocution.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as it went, possibly the film crew were in bigger danger than Sophie, with the water going all out across the studio floor. But a serious disaster, and thank God nobody was hurt.
Yeah, very lucky. Yeah, very, very lucky.
Because we would not be able to talk about this story at all in the same way if something as horrible as that happened. I mean, people have died in Doctor Who from around the production, Roger Delgado car accident, for example. So terribly tragic.
Yeah.
Such a loss.
Such a loss.
But that would be a completely different thing to an actor dying on set.
Yeah.
So
that could have been
that could have happened.
Yeah,
it could have happened. And so I mean that is a very notable thing from the production of the story. And the book was a bit better. And I mean I think Ben Aronovich is a very talented guy. Maybe it just struggled a bit with being over ambitious and then stretched too hard to be realised.
Yeah, it was struggling. It really was struggling.
Bit of a bugger that so much of the season's budget got blown on it. Oh well.
Yes. These things happen. These things happen, unfortunately. Unfortunately, they do.
Because the next episode is very clearly the cheap studio-bound other side of producing Battlefield, being Ghost Light.
Oh, although we haven't ranked. We didn't rank Battlefield. We didn't give it.
Not?
No, we did not. We did not.
Off without a rank.
Yeah, we didn't give it. We left without ranking it. Oh my God. The world will come to an end. The system will fail.
I know that the McCoy era obviously is one where we get the biggest variance of how we all feel about it, of all of the what Doctors that we've covered. So I just think I have to be honest. It's a D- to me.
Okay. Well, we've got an A, a B+, a B, and an E. I personally would give it a D.
So we're we're a bit older and a bit more cynical, and we're just not that impressed at the time.
No, give it a
kind of comes down. Maybe that is how it is.
It's a shame.
It just didn't come. It didn't come together enough to lift it into something memorable. This is the problem. Is it's forgettable.
It is.
got to stretch my mind to actually remember what happens in it. That's never a good thing in a Doctor Who story.
No.
So I am going to go with my D.
Yeah.
Did I say D minus? I'll stick to it. D minus. It really
Yeah.
didn't work for me.
I just saw it as we said earlier on. There was so much possibility, and none of it was realised, which is a shame because it could have been a really good story, but it fell flat on its face, unfortunately, which was such a shame. But
Yeah,
hey, these things happen.
Definitely a real shame. But we're
It was.
moving on into the spectral glow of the ghost light.
Slight. Oh.
One thing that ghost light has in absolute oodles and abundance is atmosphere.
Oh, it's definitely atmosphere.
But everything we just said about how flat and uninteresting Battlefield was shot, and then they actually went and turned the damn lights down.
Yes, they actually turned the lights down this time.
Near the end of Classic Who's run, somebody found a dimmer switch.
Yeah. Oh, what's this do? Oh,
it was a revelation. Yes.
Yeah. Look, what's this?
So look, we went to all the haunted house tropes.
Yeah, absolutely. Every haunted house trope.
Ghost light is horror based. The way the servants kind of come out as spooky mannequins from out of the entrances and stuff. You know, it's just really dramatic and really stands out above all. So you know, it was off to a wonderful start. And it had a lot going for it right from the beginning as you got into the story. It was Sapphire and Steel does Doctor Who. It was really where is this going?
Right. Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
This is intriguing. This
Very
is
intriguing
mysterious.
Story. Yes, indeed it is.
Well, it's a bit of a shame then, but Ghostlight's biggest problem is that it absolutely is a victim of the Cartmel method of script writing.
Yeah.
There's just too damn much of it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And that's why there's a much superior, longer version on the season 26 Blu-ray.
Again.
But the version that actually showed on screen, which I remind people is the version I'm going to be given a mark for.
Yeah.
Well, it barely held together on comprehensibility front. And I think even intelligent Doctor Who fans were having to stretch and reach to try and make the gaps in the story close. And for the general public,
yeah, exactly. It was a struggle. Absolutely.
And that is a major downside to the story because above all else, the story must be comprehensible.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, for what it's worth, I think there's a big flaw in the central premise of Ghostlight, which is it's supposed to be about evolution.
Yeah.
So you have a being called Light, who's knocking around donkey's years ago, mapping all the life in the universe, which includes mapping all the life on Earth.
Yep.
But for some reason, evolution happening freaks this godlike being out so much, it goes into an epi and goes into a kind of coma.
Yep.
At which one of its creations and the creature that piloted the ship itself started to evolve. One of them sort of goes through insect life and then ultimately re-evolves as a mammal and becomes the Josiah Smith who's running the house.
Yes.
The other one is kind of locked up in the cellar because if ever the control gets back to the spaceship, it will wake Ghost up.
Yeah.
Wake Light up, rather.
And wake Light up.
Doesn't want that to happen.
No, he doesn't want that.
Of course, ultimately, it does happen. Josiah Smith gets re-evolved, de-evolved, and turned back into a servant again. Light has a complete breakdown and blows up. And then Control and a Neanderthal and a Victorian big game hunter then go off to explore the universe in Light's ship.
There you go.
If you could do a more concise and comprehensible explanation of Ghostlight's story,
That's pretty
Anyone?
much it. No, because that's exactly what it is.
But to get that from a TV version, it's completely filling the gaps later.
Oh yeah, that's a definite fill in the gaps later. It doesn't make sense like that if you watch it.
But for ookiness and general weirdness and oddness and atmosphere, story is clearly a high performer.
Yeah.
If I was scoring atmosphere, how could this not be an A?
Oh, atmosphere wise, definitely an A straight away, no problem at all.
And certainly mystery, at least a B.
Yeah, it's got a good mystery.
But comprehensibility of the TV version, D-ishy. I'm going to play King Solomon here and even it all out with a fat C in the middle score.
I'd give it a C minus.
And I'm prepared to believe that, I do remember reading the Target book and thinking it was a lot better than the on-screen story. So I suspect I've already seen the improved version or already read that story. And I suspect that it's very likely I'd give the season 26 Blu-ray version a B. Provided that it does, on Ian's I'm going on Ian's recommendation that it lines up as well as he says it does. I expect I might give it a B. But not with the edit that went out live. No.
But I would imagine.
For me, I think a C is more than fair.
Yeah.
Especially since I kicked Battlefield right in the Goonies. But it was just the wrong time in my life. This is me at my 16-year-old cynical best stroke worst. So I was pretty put rock by then, and the BBC was having to work to impress me. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Okay, well, I think some people definitely like it more than less worried about the story's failings.
Yeah,
and on a basis of the strength of the production, it definitely deserves that. So somewhat lacking film version. Well, that's exactly what we were, Sadako. Somewhat lacking film versions of the novels. Yeah. I mean, the novels are somewhat more complete versions of the shooting scripts.
Oh yeah.
And what was actually in the edit. It's as simple as that, So, gosh, how time flies. We're getting there, Gobby. We're getting there.
Yep, we are.
Yes, but still time enough to be dragged under the waves and cursed by Fenric.
Yes. Vampires, and World War II, and everything else.
Which yet again has an extended version, which is
of
far
course
better.
Does. Yes, which makes more sense.
Which again I have seen because I purchased the special edition VHS of it in the early 90s.
There you go, you see.
So I can at least assess it, and yes, it is better. About 12 minutes better, if I remember. But I mean, Curse of Fenric is a triumph for the characterization of the Doctor.
Yeah, agreed.
We've been trying for this darker, more mysterious Doctor since the start of the previous season. It's been a bit hit and miss, sometimes definitely more miss than hit.
Yeah.
But here, it comes together really well. And perhaps it's because there is an underlying fear in the Doctor.
Yeah.
He fears this situation. He knows it has to happen. He knows the contest must be refought. He knows Fenric must be opposed. He knows he must win this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is not all completely Mr. Cocky this time out.
No, he's unsure about this one.
And at the same time, he's involved in something he's known about Ace all along. And this is the story where the Doctor unashamedly manipulates Ace.
Oh, God, yeah. 100%.
And I think if we hadn't already had the McCoy era developed to his point, if this was one of the first McCoy stories, the idea of a Doctor treating his companion like this would have had fandom up in arms.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, by the time we got to Fenric, it was much more expected. But the dramatic power of effectively breaking Ace's psyche in this story.
Yeah.
Gives it a lot of punch. And when it's written by the same guy who first wrote for her character, also gives it power. So there's
Yeah.
power in the writing with the key character dynamics in Fenric. And that boosts it up immensely right from the start. We could take it more seriously as a story because the characters are taking it more seriously between themselves.
Yeah.
And then you've got the actual antagonist. Both the heroes work really well. A little bit vampire camp with the way the two girls are done, but the really horrible ones work really well all the time. But they're from a polluted, far, far future Earth. Also really work really well, really powerful. Fenric, godlike being, manipulating the entire time. Just strong McCoy era theme stuff. And delivered with excellence, in technical excellence. Well acted, well shot, well produced, convincing. There's just everything good to say about this story. In my mind. But yeah, I mean, Matthew just said there, Ace hitting on the guard was creepy and weird. Well, young people's sexuality was certainly not an area that the show was in its comfort zone with in the 80s. And I think, the show would find that pretty weird today. I mean, Amy could do flirting pretty good, couldn't she? But
Oh God, yeah.
Using your sexuality to get round someone like that, certainly questionable, but also spoke to how much Ace was being messed about by the Doctor here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But she'd think the situation was so desperate that she'd kind of give up that bit of self-respect in a way.
Yeah.
Time Prophet also talks about Nicholas Parsons, who did do a great turn as the vicar in this. He was really
absolutely.
That worked really well.
Yes, certainly did.
And so, all the guest turns and the power of the story and the strength of the resolution. And to me, it can't be a B.
No.
If I put this up against maybe Tom Baker's season 13 stories, maybe it would be a B.
Yeah.
But in terms of the context of where it was being made and what was being dished up around it,
yeah, exactly.
The quality just screams to be recognised.
Yeah.
So it's an A. Do I have any particular minuses for it? Not especially.
No.
Not especially. Is it better than Remembrance of the Daleks?
No. I would put it on the same par, personally. I'll
In
put it
that
on
case,
the same level.
I'm going to go A-.
Yeah, I'll put it on the same par.
Still, even though it's McCoy at its best, still not quite where the show had got to in the past.
No, it was
as hard as the show was trying,
and it really did try
to deliver. And really, obviously, the show really was trying.
It was.
It was a very, very, very good story for the time.
Yeah.
And it certainly makes me feel I wish we could have got 2 more seasons.
Yeah. Shame we well.
Because it was going in an interesting direction.
Oh, it was good.
Although, on the other hand, maybe it's best as well we didn't, and no one did anything stupid like messing about with Gallifrey.
Well, yes, indeed.
So perhaps we should leave that to other people and everything. Yes.
Yes.
But here we are, Gobby. Here we are. Blimey, what a journey!
Yeah, absolutely.
We are now ready to discuss the final story of the classic run of Doctor Who.
Yep, absolutely.
How did it make it this far when all through its history there was always a question over the show's survival?
It's amazing. And
Come on, how was that for a seg?
That was beautiful, sir. Absolutely beautiful. The writer shone through there, sir. The writer shone through.
Gobby, tell me what you think. You tell me what you think of survival. I remember you piped up last week with survival in a way
Yeah.
that makes me think you like this story a lot. So tell me about it.
I like it. I like it for many, many different reasons. But what I like about it is I remember it because that was it. It literally, we watched this one, and it wasn't even the ending. Was like we're going to the next one, and it never happened. And it was like it's so there for me. The story, it's fun. My fondness for this story is because it was the last of the classic series.
So in fact, the emotion is
Yeah, the
part of it.
emotion. Yeah, I would say more than anything, it's the attachment to the fact that they walked off, and you thought, "We'll see you
But
next
also
season."
perhaps a touch of dissatisfaction that this
Yeah,
wasn't ever supposed to be the final story.
no, it wasn't.
I mean,
And
when you consider how
see
they
that.
wanted to end it, the John Pertwee era, Roger Delgado had been alive
Yeah,
at the end of John Pertwee era. The final Pertwee story would not have been giant spiders. It would
no,
have been the Reichenbach Falls, Moriarty versus Holmes, the Doctor versus the Master,
exactly.
kicking the heck out of each other with the fate of the universe at stake.
Yeah,
And survival could have been that.
it could have been that, but it was never written like that because it wasn't ever written
Because
to
it
be
was
the
never
end.
known to be that.
No.
Imagine if survival had been a cliffhanger McCoy regeneration.
Oh, exactly. Absolutely, but it's that, and that's
With the master there, the stakes were possible
yeah,
to have a story like that. Definitely, the stakes were possible, but of course that isn't how it went. That wasn't what it was. The other one of the most important things about survival is that who wrote it. Because one of the very few female writers of the classic era, Rona Munro,
Rona Munro,
who would return years later for Eaters of Light. Which, to be fair, I don't think deserved to be the lowest rated Capaldi story.
no,
Because, they were worse. They really were worse.
there
In
were
the
some really
Forest
bad
of the
ones, yeah.
Night,
Oh, yeah.
But leave it as it may. So it's no shocker to recognise that Rona Munro is a feminist writer.
Yeah.
And her whole career has been based around feminist ideas in writing. So what she was doing with the character of Ace, with Ace's dead friend, and with the other friend character that they she might have brought in. She was definitely trying to do a young female exploration thing.
Yeah, that was
And not that I want to say anything negative, but I do need to state that the old adversaries for Doctor Who Feminist Front claimed to be close friends with Rona Munro. In fact, they claimed that Rona Munro was a direct supporter of their group. Yeah. And they tell a story that Rona Munro was writing that as a lesbian. Well, I don't know much about a relationship, but as a lesbian encounter.
Yeah.
And in the context of the cheetah people. Yeah. And how the cheetahs are all female.
Yeah.
You can kind of see there's some grounds for where
you can see where it comes from.
That's going, because this is all a story about the mysterious undercurrents of the blood.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get much more feminine than that.
No.
And it's talking about losing your rationality, losing your humanity, but replacing it with being enraptured in this state of hunting consciousness. So it's all about the savagery underneath. And the only way out of a situation is not to fight, ultimately, is the message. Because as the Doctor screams to the sky, if we fight like animals, we will die like animals.
Absolutely.
But the whole cats teleporting people, alternate planet, burning sky, cat people, and the danger, it's dangerous to be on that planet because that planet changes who you are.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
really powerful, fantastic stuff. Just exactly what you want to build a strong Doctor Who story on.
Mm.
And, I think that Munro writes for the Master really quite well. And Anthony Ainley is clearly loving every moment of it.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Absolutely.
absolutely
You can see
adoring
it.
it.
You can see. Oh, he's thinking it's brilliant.
Maybe a touch too much.
Yeah, just a little bit.
What brought this story down for me at the time was the juxtaposition of taking the Master, who I sort of view as a cosmic level dangerous enemy, and then putting him into a London suburban sitting room.
Yeah.
It is a very odd place to put him. And I find it odd to take that part of it seriously, that the Masters would be so petty as to bother himself with that.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an off note in the story. But also the Mitch character, which I think this one is down to the casting. Remember, I'm a bullshit teenager at this point. I ain't taking nonsense from no one.
Yeah.
And you've got this guy, he can't, looks like he can't even shave. And he's been taken out of acting school, and he's trying to play tough, and he's got no toughness in him at all.
Not a bit.
He's trying to play these scenes against these other guys, and they're supposed to respect him. And do you know what I mean? No, mate, you're just a twat. Why the hell would I listen to you? What could kick him in nudges? You're done.
Yeah.
So teenage me was very turned off by that part of it. That whole thing failed badly. And I want to know, why is the Master messing about in suburban houses and youth parks?
Oh, yeah.
Because the last place you'd find me was down the youth centre. What sort of self-respecting youth goes down the youth centre, Gobby?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Especially when there's much more interesting places for an anarchic-minded young man to be, which don't have the constricting rules of a youth centre. So, I think. I feel so strong. I still feel that's a terrible performance from the guy playing Mitch.
Yeah.
What happened, casting director?
Yeah.
If it had been somebody who could actually be menacing,
I
think it would have lifted the whole story for me.
Well, of course it would.
Because it was, the Doctor's got Ace as his feral companion. Look what the Master's got.
Yeah. He's not the same, is he? He's nowhere near.
It's like Mr. Tibbles, isn't it? It's just not on the same level.
Nowhere near. Not
on the same level.
Not on the same level.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is a very contemporary story. Yes.
Yeah.
But that Rona Munro, and I do believe there probably is something in it with what Feminist Front was saying.
Yeah.
JNT said no to giving Ace a lesbian relationship, probably for two reasons. One, he didn't want to skirt the show towards what would have been negative publicity at the time.
Yeah, it would.
And number two, maybe he didn't want people thinking too closely about what he got up to in his spare time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, indeed.
So, what else can we say about this story? I mean, it did do a lot of things well. The production was really good.
The
cheetah costumes were an absolute triumph.
Oh, stunning.
Best costume of the Doctor show had managed for quite some time. Probably since the Vervoids, I would think.
Yeah.
Better than the Hemovore costuming.
Oh, yeah.
They had gaps showing the Hemovore.
Oh, definitely.
We overlooked that because the story was fun. But definitely probably best, better than the Destroyer, because that was ultimately just a ranting no mark villain in a mask. It wasn't any real consequence.
No.
The cheetahs, you remember them.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is always the mark of a success in Doctor Who, when you remember them.
Well, you remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're stunning.
I don't know what's on the cutting room floor for Survival. Given the rest of how the season went, if there isn't more Survival, I'd be amazed.
Yeah,
But I don't know if there's supposed to be any kind of extended edition for it. I didn't find it the most satisfying story of that season.
No.
Probably because I had the big problems with part 3.
Yeah.
And I would put both Ghostlight and Curse of Fenric above it.
Yeah. Agreed with that.
So despite the fact that it is very well regarded as the final story of the show, I think my most generous would be a B+.
Fair enough.
And that's me being good-willing because it's the final story of the classic era.
Yeah.
I'd say B+. Surely we must have people thinking this is an A.
Yeah, I'd give it a B. I'd give it a B.
A in his best performances, I'd certainly agree with Matt Pounder said.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, absolutely.
A from Cinnamon Toast.
Yeah, A there. B from
But
Matt.
it's a taste thing, A or B, and the feminist stuff. It wouldn't have put me off at the time, but it maybe has impacted me a little bit with how I look at it today because of what we've all just been through.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a touch of that impacting me, but no, I don't think so. I don't think this story was ever going to be an A for me. So B+ would do nicely. But if anyone thought that was it, no, because we're not finishing this stream here.
No, not yet.
This is about the McCoy era.
Yes.
And no matter what fans may say, Survival is not McCoy's final performance of the Doctor. And no, I don't mean the Dark Dimension.
No.
I do, of course, mean Doctor Who, the TV movie.
The TV movie. Yes, indeed.
8 years later, and suddenly, we've had Nirvana, we've had grunge. We're all a bit older and wiser now, kids.
Yes.
And this is the late 90s. And all of a sudden, some Americans have come up with some cash, and they want to make Doctor Who with BBC. And there's going to be a great new era of Doctor Who. And launch it, there's going to be a brand new pilot Doctor Who movie, which was shown, I believe it was shown at Easter as a one-off TV event special.
Yes.
And it was a tremendous success in Britain.
In Britain, yeah, not so much in America.
Possibly because Paul McGann is a dead-hot English dude and not a little Scottish man. And there was a lot more interest in this new sexy Doctor Who. And it was best part of 10 million watched it.
Yep.
Which off the back of the figures for Survival 8 years before was really impressive. And, I think if the whole thing had worked, I think a lot of people in the UK would have carried on watching it.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I think the idea of a version of Doctor Who was some of the stories would be set in America, some of the stories would be set in the UK, and this would be happening in the 90s. I think that would have been a very dramatic success.
Yeah.
Hindsight, the biggest problem with the Doctor Who TV movie was it was the wrong story.
Yeah, very much the wrong story.
Because to try to introduce Doctor Who to a bunch of Americans who've never heard of it, involving regenerating the previous guy who hasn't done it for 8 years.
Yeah.
And explaining all that.
Yep.
And making the Doctor half human, and bringing the Master back, and having a thingy that could suck all of Earth through the Eye of Harmony. It was a mess.
Yeah, it was very messy.
But it's a good thing it was a mess, because it was a mess that we got Sylvester McCoy's final performance as the Doctor.
Well, yeah.
On screen.
On screen.
But it was a bad thing it was a mess, because it meant we didn't get a new era of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And it would be many years later. It would still be another 8 years until we got a sniff of it. So in actual fact, it was only the halfway mark through the dark times.
Yeah.
It was. And, Russell knew what he was doing in 2005, obviously.
Clearly.
But just imagine if a 1997 American produced and American funded Doctor Who special had been about an auton invasion of shopping malls in the United States,
Oh,
with a new McCann Doctor just hitting the story right from the start at 100 miles an hour, and an epic alien invasion that would put that mental picture in the minds of all those Americans and make them afraid to go to the shopping mall. Just think of the
exactly.
impact
Yeah,
that story would have had.
exactly.
Oh
Exactly.
dear. They
Yeah.
might have been telling that story later, but they did the wrong thing telling the story that they did.
Yeah.
But
They did.
nevertheless, I think this is Sylvester McCoy's best performance as the Doctor.
Yeah. 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 Even though he's not in it for very long, but yeah.
Because you believe in him.
Yeah. 100%.
The moment the record going around on the record player and then it jams and the cut goes flying,
Yeah.
you believe that this is a guy who's lived a very long time.
Very long time
You
indeed.
believe this is
Yeah.
a guy who has his totally unique life, living his life in a completely unique pace in this frankly gobsmackingly gorgeous time machine, which is still considered by some fans to be the best console room of all time today.
Yeah.
And then you've got the tragedy of walking out the door and getting shot down by a drug gang.
Yeah.
Tragic for the Doctor, but also tragic for Earth.
Yeah.
But man's stupidity and brutality, A, have just killed such a wonderful being, but B, have put us all at threat.
Yeah.
That's got quite a bit of pathos to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Then you've got the don't stick that in me, you'll kill me. Oh, you stuck it in me. Oh, you killed me.
Killed me. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Which it isn't played up to be horrific, but it's still really, really powerful. It's full of pathos, especially for anyone who has seen this McCoy era,
Yeah.
and to see their Doctor going down like this. So I just love that performance. It gives it its all. He sells it completely, and he makes us sorry that he has to go.
It is.
And what actor playing the Doctor could ask for more than that?
Well, no. It's
Even David Tennant achieved that.
well, yeah.
I mean, did Matt Smith have people blubbing down the street because he was leaving the part? Not so much.
Not so much, no.
But Sylvester managed it in the TV movie.
Yeah. It was
So totally hats off. Regarding the rest of it, Eric Roberts absolutely off his trolley.
completely.
But why not?
Why not? Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, the sins must be the seeds of the John Sims Master as deranged loony are planted on screen in the TV movie right there and then, aren't they?
Oh, 100%.
So we could say Eric Roberts redefined the character. But the regeneration and oh my god, talk about religious overtones.
Oh, well, yeah. Just a
Frankenstein of the Second Coming, driven in with a sledgehammer with a bolt through the neck. But and there certainly were religious overtones there.
Yeah.
I mean, very close to Doctor Who as Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's close, yeah. Very close.
Very close. Absolutely.
And especially when you consider how much of more of a religious mindset America tends to have, and how that would have played with the American audience. But maybe it didn't play very well because no one really seemed to like it at the end of the day. And of course, the concept failed, the series failed, and it never happened. It was never made, and left Paul McGann as hanging officially the Doctor for longer than anybody else.
Oh, technically, yeah, officially.
Not technically, officially.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of being part of a licensed Doctor Who product.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a very strange situation. Must have been totally disappointed in Paul McGann.
It's a shame,
as far as it goes, Paul McGann is just fantastic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love everything about it.
just yeah,
perfect romantic, pre-Raphaelite Doctor. And it's such a shame we were robbed of that incarnation.
yeah. Agreed.
I
Agreed.
do like the more world weary Time War version of the Eighth Doctor.
Yeah,
But I would have loved to have seen the adventures of this fresh-faced, innocent new regenerate.
yeah,
And I didn't even mind the Doctor half-human thing.
yeah.
I know we all forgot about it.
Well, of course, because
Obviously we didn't take it seriously because no one would bother to make more of it, so why should we? But it could have been a very interesting timeline for a Doctor. And it doesn't
yeah,
have to be something that could always be true, because I'm all into infinite alternate dimensions of the Doctor. But when they try that on us, well, that door goes both ways.
well, yeah.
So if I don't like your infinite dimension version of the Doctor, guess what? I don't have to.
Don't have to. Don't have
Yeah.
to accept it.
And it's the same with the Paul McGann half-human thing. But the performance was fantastic.
I must admit, I really enjoyed Paul McGann's performance. It's a
Daphne
shame. It's a shame we never got more of him. It really was. Really.
Ashbrook as
Yeah.
oh god, the name's just gone straight out of my head. What's the character's name?
Uh,
The Doctor. Oh, the Doctor. Oh,
Grace.
Right.
Grace Holloway. Grace.
Brilliant. Uh, you know, I would have so adored a season of her being a kind of semi-skeptical Mully. Like X-Files, scolding
Yeah,
a
the
Mully.
X-Files. Yeah.
And yet constantly having her brain blown and her assumptions questioned and her horizons expanded. A season with her and Paul McGann, even if they kissed and cuddled all the time, would have been great.
Yes, it would have been. Wow. It's
On
again.
the other hand, Jim Lee, Adric Mark II on crack.
Oh, don't even go there. Oh
A
dear me.
very unpleasant, morally decadent, despicable little shit of a character.
Well, you hit that well. You sat on
Yeah,
the fence.
if I missed the mark, let me know.
Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not a likable character at all.
Yeah.
At all. No.
Yeah.
No, there was no redeeming qualities of that one. None whatsoever. None at all.
There was potential there.
Yeah, but
if they could have developed it, maybe gone down the reluctant gang member route, but he just came across as an absolute piece of shit tosser.
yeah, basically. I mean, yeah.
At the end, he's all cheerful, like, see you then, Doctor. Not if I see you first, you thieving little.
Oh, dear me. Oh, dear. Oh.
Now,
Yeah.
if there's any Lee Jing stands in the chat, please make yourself known now, because I rarely put the boot into a character quite as thoroughly as that. Genghis Khan, that was him. Yeah,
there you go.
Genghis Khan, for any sense of morality or ethics left in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Oh. No way, yes way.
No way, yes way.
Yeah, no way. Some of us remember the lines from the TV movie a little bit too much.
Yes.
Just saving Grace alone would have been acceptable.
Yeah.
But while we're here, TV movie, give it a score.
Yeah, give it a score. I know it's a very
everything up until Sylvester McCoy stops being in it, A+.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it. That little bit at the beginning, definitely.
Overall,
the rest of it,
it was a distinctly non-committal C.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was watchable. It wasn't terrible.
It's not. It wasn't
could
bad.
have gone somewhere really good.
Here we go.
But it was the wrong choice, and it depended for its success on the wrong audience.
Yeah. So we got a D, a B-, a B. No surprise from Time Prophet, an F minus. He really doesn't like it. And Matthew give it a B plus. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I mean, the thing
I
is,
could see he's reasonable for it.
yeah,
I really did enjoy rewatching it. I
yeah,
do have quite a bit of fondness for it.
it's
And
okay.
it was an attempt to
Entertaining.
reboot the show.
Yeah, it was an
And
attempt.
next week, we will be talking about an infinitely more successful attempt to reboot the show.
Yeah, an actual proper reboot that worked.
But worked. Because
worked.
from next week, everybody,
Yep.
Why We Love Doctor Who is moving into the new Who era.
Oh, get ready for Time Prophet. You won't be happy.
So we'll say goodbye now to the Time Prophet, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a future series of streams.
Go!
Jonas, mate, you deserve that one. You deserve that one. But we are not going to continue with these Doctor by Doctor. Instead, we are going to do them season by season. And the reason is that there are a lot more stories.
A hell of a lot more stories.
Given the time for the live stream, and we really don't want to go over 2.5, and really should try to come in at 2.
Yeah, we really
season by season. And there's just too much there to try and do it any justice otherwise.
Yeah,
if you try and do, what is it, 36, 37 stories, more 40 stories of the Tenant era.
Yeah,
that's not going to be good in 2 hours. Not to talk about it with any justice and fairness.
No.
So join us next week. As we all end up coming smelling of rose, and it's Billy Piper and Christopher Eccleston who taking Doctor Who forward into a bold new era, or an era where we will find, no matter our misgivings, even more things to love.
Yes, indeed we shall. And with that, we're going to bring this one to a close. Thank you for all you wonderful human beings.
Goodbye, chat. We've had a great time with chat today.
Brilliant. Chat's been brilliant. Thank you again, John.
It's so much fun.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's so much fun. It's nice to see we're all diverse of our opinions and our views of it, and that's how it should be. But one thing we can all agree on is we all love Doctor Who.
Well, it's all about how you squint at it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we all got together and stuck on Remembrance of the Daleks, followed by Curse of Fenric, followed by Survival, we'd all have a pretty good evening, it seems.
I think we'd have an awesome evening.
I think we would.
And with that,
better book a movie theatre near you.
Oh God, yeah, it'd be awesome. And with that, I think we shall bring it to a close, John.
We shall indeed. Goodbye, everybody. Till next week.
Everybody. Till next week. See you later.